Chapter 181. Understood, a mechanical voice said from the phone. Synchronized voice connection successful. Hello, can you hear me? The three of them exchanged irritated looks, but said nothing. Fine. Since you won't speak, I will. Listen carefully. What I'm selling isn't equipment, it's a service. You'll get the world's most advanced artificial intelligence. 10 million a set is a bargain. As my first potential customers, I won't treat you like fools. I'll treat you like fat pigs ripe for slaughter. First time's always the most expensive. If you want to buy the AI outright, that's possible, but the price is steep. 10 billion pounds. If you want to learn the language I wrote it in, Devlin Hillian, that will cost you 20 billion pounds, and I guarantee you'll learn it. This is a rare opportunity. Think it over. If you don't want it, I'll sell it to the Americans. I'm sure they'll be interested. Call me when you decide. Bye-bye. Click. Bond's phone made the click of a call ending. He set his glasses down beside it, gestured at his earphones in the belt buckle, and said, William gave me the phone, glasses, earphones, and a backup locator belt buckle yesterday at Devlin Hill Castle. At the time, I wondered why he'd hand me devices like these. Now it looks like he's trying to sell them to the Secret Service, no less, and make a fortune. What do they do? Why would he tell us about artificial intelligence? That's the most advanced, the most sensitive technology, the woman asked, curious. Bond thought for a moment, shrugged, and said, I don't know. William Devlin Hill comes off as extremely greedy, ruthless, and brilliant. Maybe he's showing off, proving how clever he is, or maybe this is a lower-tier product he's selling to raise money for something bigger. She frowned, but accepted the answer. She knew the value of AI, and that this had to be reported. There's a thin line between genius and madness, she said. Maybe he wants me to tell my superiors he's invented AI. Now tell me what these devices actually do. Bond nodded. The phone has global positioning and ordinary phone functions, but its key role is data transmission. The glasses stream what they see back to a server through the phone, so the server can tag and analyze the images. The glasses also do photography, facial recognition, augmented overlays, and voice navigation. The earphones look like a lab prototype. I've heard similar models cost around $120,000. The belt buckle is just a backup locator. Bill picked up the phone and glasses, inspecting them. The hardware in the phone and glasses is very advanced, but we could probably reproduce it given the budget. The core is the system integration, the operating software, and the information processing capabilities. If you want, I can get experts to run tests. No, Bond said quickly. Absolutely not. I think if you try to disassemble them, they'll self-destruct. Maybe even the phone will explode. William told me the phone and glasses only have 3 days of use. Bond looked at his watch. There's less than 43 hours left. After that, if the phone and glasses don't receive his command, they'll self-destruct. If they can't get a signal, they'll self-destruct too. So you're saying William can check their status through the AI, and if he thinks something's wrong, he can order them to blow up? And if we try to jam the signal, they'll self-destruct immediately? Bill said grimly. Yes, Bond replied. Don't overthink it. That bastard William might even be eavesdropping on us right now. They fell silent. Bond was right. William wasn't personally monitoring them in real time, but Sunday had been listening in. When Bill mentioned disassembling the devices, Sunday took it as a potential threat and informed William. After hearing the audio from Sunday, William lost interest. Without the AI, the devices were just half-finished hardware, like a car without fuel. If the battery self-destructed, the devices would be nothing more than ornaments. The subsystem programs were written by Sunday in an intentionally garbled code that even William couldn't fully understand. Anyone who wanted to crack it would first have to decipher that garbled language, a task far harder than translating any lost ancient tongue. William had anticipated that. He had Sunday insert a lot of useless code into the subsystem and regularly swap the positions of characters across hundreds of thousands of lines. Those random substitutions multiplied the difficulty exponentially. The point was to hide Sunday's existence. William planned to use Sunday more and more. His lifelong experience of discrimination and mistrust had made him reluctant to rely on Europeans or Americans. He needed a plausible reason for Sunday's presence. One night, when he dreamt of a faceless man calling him an idiot, William realized he couldn't return to the great heavenly dynasty. No one would trust a mixed heritage agent raised in England to be loyal to them. He couldn't count on England or the great heavenly dynasty. In the end, he had to trust only himself. Sunday, he told his AI, set up an independent server. No external connections. Highest security level. Only I can access it. If the system is ever breached, prioritize destroying this task. Leave no trace. Understood? Sunday replied. A few minutes later, Sunday said, Sir, the task has been created. Please name it. Iron Man suit. Chapter 68. Wanting to build a Sentinel Mark II but can't understand the blueprints. What William really wanted to build was the Sentinel Mark II. If he could decipher the shapeshifting gene completely, the Mark II Sentinels wouldn't only mimic anyone's appearance, they would contain no metallic parts. Mimicking a skeleton would let them pass any security check without suspicion. They would have advanced intelligence, extreme resilience, flight capability, tremendous strength and speed, and the ability to transform their bodies into weapons. In human form, they would make perfect bodyguards or assassins. But when William stared at the fully decoded Mystique genetic blueprint, he was stumped. He had spent so long thinking of himself as a genius that the sheer complexity of genetics forced him to confront a different truth. He wasn't a genius, he'd been bluffing. If he couldn't understand the blueprint, he'd have to learn the science slowly. Sentinels without shapeshifting or superpowers were no match for an Iron Man suit. So William set the Mark II aside and focused on the suit. With Sunday's mechanical assistance, even if he had to copy and build it piece by piece, he could eventually succeed. First the Mark II. No, first a prototype. After one success, he'd gain experience and could build a portable Mark V, then keep iterating toward the nanotech Mark L. He didn't care about aesthetics. The suit was for his and his mother's protection. While building the suit, he could study Sentinel technology and later on try to apply the Sentinel's self-healing tech and superpowers to the armor. One huge problem remained: the server requirements. With hardware that was essentially at a 2000-era level, how much would it cost to build servers capable of running the suit? He might not have enough money even if he spent everything. The thought made him restless and furious. In a flash of frustration, he kicked the car. The Aston Martin DB7 he'd bought less than a month ago took the blow. There was a hole kicked near the accelerator pedal, but the brakes and steering survived. William pulled over to the side of the road, shut off the engine, and sat in the driver's seat to calm down. Reality had hit him hard. He finally understood the despair Tony's father described in the video he had watched. The frustration of ideas outpacing what the world could actually build. Since he couldn't build the Mark suit or the Mark II Sentinels right away, he had to ask for help. Sunday, he said aloud, dial Winston's number for me. Chapter 182. About 10 seconds later, Winston's hearty laugh came through William's Bluetooth headset. Hello, William. What made you call me? Good morning, Uncle. It should be morning there, right? William said, feigning casualness. I saw a few Patek Philippe's while shopping. They looked nice, so I wanted to ask whether you prefer a metal or leather strap. Winston chuckled. Thank you, okay, little guy. I can tell from your voice you're just humoring me. Come on, what's the real reason you called? You don't call me out of the blue unless there's something. No, I really was thinking of sending you a watch, William lied smoothly, intending to buy a limited edition Patek and have it shipped later so he wouldn't be teased. And I wanted to ask you something else. Do you have anyone reliable who could act as my mother's bodyguard? Winston's tone went cold for a moment. Did something happen? No, don't worry, Uncle. Mom and I are fine. It's just that I'll be involved in a lot of deals in the coming days, with large sums moving around. I want to line up bodyguards ahead of time so we won't be caught flat-footed if something pops up. That's a relief. Winston softened. After a pause, he added, I do have someone in mind, but are you okay with people of color? William blinked. Uncle, have you been stuck in the hotel too long? Neither of us is white. Do you really think I'd care about skin color? Winston laughed. Don't be mad. I've heard a rumor lately that Chinese people, some of them, pretend not to, but secretly despise anyone who isn't ethnically Chinese. Since you're half Chinese, I thought I'd double check. William thought that was a strange rumor but waved it off. Don't worry. I don't care about that. I care about family and competence. Good. Winston warmed up again. The man I'm thinking of is Robert McCall. He was in a Black Ops commando unit, faked his own death, and retired. Now he lives in Boston and works as a shipping clerk at a big hardware store. He's top tier. With McCall and a couple of assistants, protecting Lena won't be a problem. William had a vague impression of those Black Ops commandos, experts at protecting VIPs and neutralizing heavily armed opponents. That commando unit? If he faked his death and retired, would he really come back out of retirement to live on the edge? Uncle, is there nobody more conventional you could introduce? I don't want a bodyguard who's going to attract trouble. Winston snapped, half amused, half exasperated. Who do you think I am? I manage the Continental Hotel. Caution is the basis of survival. You and Lena are my only family. Would I send anyone risky? Think about it. A black man who faked his death to retire. Do you think he had an easy time in the Secret Service? Do you imagine he's still fighting America's wars years after he walked away? When you put it that way, it makes sense, William conceded. Sorry, Uncle. When can I meet this McCall? I'll send you his number. I've got connections. He won't turn down my call. But you should meet him in person. Very capable people don't always value money above everything else. William smiled at the implication. If they didn't value money, they valued honor, reputation, or loyalty. Understood. I'm actually setting up the Devonshire Family Trust. If McCall agrees to protect my mother, I'll consider shifting the foundation's charitable focus toward African descendants. Winston laughed. Very good, kid. The heart is the best bond and weapon. Come to New York and watch a game with me when you can. And for the watch, I like leather straps, vintage style. Remember. No problem, Uncle. I'll pick out a few and send you photos. Even if you don't like them, you'll have to wear one. This is my first gift to you. William feigned a grin. All right, if you like it, I'll pretend to like it too. By the way, your first present to me was when you peed on my suit as a baby. Goodbye, my dear nephew. After he hung up, William went into the Patek Philippe boutique, selected a few vintage pieces, swiped his card, and addressed the package to Winston at the Continental Hotel in New York. After that errand, he sat in the boutique, drinking coffee, and called the Aston Martin dealership. He arranged for the damaged car to be towed away, advertised as a used vehicle, and ordered a new DB7 of the same model. Less than 20 minutes later, the Aston Martin manager arrived at the boutique with a middle-aged Patek store manager. William made the payment on the POS machine the Aston rep brought, exchanged pleasantries, and, amid the flattery of both managers, was shown to his new car. He climbed in and drove straight to the Four Seasons. When he pulled up, a butler and two maids were waiting. In the presidential suite, he dismissed them with a wave and collapsed on the sofa, thinking about the Mark II blueprints stored in his system. He instructed Sunday to start recording the parts he described aloud, one by one. From 4 p.m. to 10 p.m., 6 hours straight, William talked until his throat was raw, but had only described fewer than 300 parts. Realizing that was less than 1/10 of what he still needed, he felt discouraged. He decided to rest before he lost his voice entirely. He sipped black tea, ordered supper, and slept until dawn. After breakfast, Sunday reported, "Sir, Mr. Craig's plane has just landed at Changi. Do you want to start monitoring him now?" "No," William rubbed his eyes. "Tell me when Patrice shows up. Also call Gareth. Don't let him pace himself into insomnia. Has Silva's mistress, Severine, arrived in Singapore?" "She's already in Singapore, sir, but she's clearly escorted by bodyguards. The Expendables haven't had an opportunity to contact her yet." William took his coffee onto the balcony, looked out toward Hyde Park, and grimaced at the thought of the thousands of parts he still had to record. "Have yesterday's parts been sent to the factories?" "Yes, sir. 300 parts were sent to 71 processing plants across 6 countries. Per your request, we used standard aerospace-grade materials. They'll all be shipped back to the castle in 7 days." Then continue. William set his cup down and let the morning pass. After lunch, he drifted back to sleep. Then Sunday woke him. "Sir, it's 8:46 p.m. Singapore time. Mr. Craig has spotted Patrice. Christmas and Gunner from the Expendables are tailing Craig and Patrice with Black Phoenix drones. I've called Gareth Mallory. He's just gotten in his car and will be here in 17 minutes. William mumbled and went back to sleep. More than 20 minutes later, a knock woke him. Before he could scold whoever it was, Sunday announced, "Mr. Mallory is outside the bedroom door." Sighing, William put on a robe, opened the door and ushered Gareth in, shoving him gently aside before he could start grumbling. "Sunday, stream the feed to the TV." William slumped onto the sofa. "Pour me and that dark-faced fellow 2 glasses of whiskey," he said to the butler. The man bowed and left. William gestured to the sofa beside him. "Sit. I called you so you could see this with your own eyes and stop staying up all night pestering me with calls." Before Gareth could retort, Sunday's voice came from the TV. "Sir, the image is being processed. Connection will be established in 10 seconds. Gareth peered at the cabinet, then at William. "Is this your smart system? Can it hack television networks?" William raised an eyebrow. "Do you not see the satellite uplink on the cabinet? Sunday's a broadcast-capable system." Gareth persisted. "Can it hack the internet?" William laughed and took a sip of whiskey. "No, but if you could lend me a few government supercomputers, I might be able to develop a more advanced AI. Gareth's eyes lit up. "If you want government resources, you'll need to show us something worth it. I can't file a report asking for equipment just on vague claims. Let our people participate in the research." William yawned. "Fine, buy it for £10 billion. Gareth snorted. $10 billion for something subpar? From what I know of you, if you're willing to sell it, it's not top of the line. We'd be better off using that money to develop our own." "If you can't afford it, be quiet," William muttered, realizing his little scheme to borrow resources for free wouldn't work. He lost interest. "You watch. I'm going to sleep." He took a couple of steps, then added, "And if you want to keep watching, don't make a sound. Disturb me, and I'll kick you out." Back in the bedroom, he slept until 3 in the afternoon. When he woke, Sunday reported, "Sir, 30 minutes ago, Christmas and Gunnar made contact with Miss Severine. She says she'll only reveal Silva's location if she can meet you in person to confirm Barney's information." William smirked. $10 million and a new identity, and she sold him out. Smart or heartless? He had planned to contact Severine earlier, but had held off for fear of alerting Silva. He'd told Sunday to watch her closely. After several days of surveillance, Sunday had reported that Severine had actually been fantasizing about killing Silva. Chapter 183. William had long suspected that Severine might be planning to betray them, so he arranged to contact her covertly as she was leaving the Golden Dragon Hotel for Lion City. If she refused to cooperate, he had other ways to make her talk, methods that carried risks for both of them and would be cruel to her, but for now, this was the best option. Christmas made the initial approach with a small payment, and Severine agreed without fuss. William then told Christmas to get her account number and transfer a $5 million deposit, half of the $10 million he'd budgeted. He didn't need her to tell him Silva's exact location. She only had to take Craig to find Silva. Catching Silva was only part of William's plan. He needed Silva alive long enough to serve his purpose, and then he would eliminate him. Later that evening, William came out of his bedroom in a robe and pajamas to find Garrick sitting at the bar, pouring whiskey. When William noticed the bottle, he couldn't help cursing. "Damn it, you opened a bottle of Macallan 1926 and didn't even call me?" Garrick grinned. "You said if I woke you, you'd kick me out. I had to drink alone." He poured William a glass and waved the bottle. "I'm a good friend, right? I left you more than half a bottle." William tasted it and sighed in pleasure. "This is excellent. Thanks. Next time I'll remember to call you." "Deal," Garrick said, clinking his glass and downing his drink. He refilled half a glass for himself. "One more toast. Then I have to head back to work." As William lifted his glass, the butler who had been hovering stepped forward, nervous. "Sir, I should tell you, this Macallan 1926 was specially prepared for you by one of our hotel directors, based on your usual preferences. It's valued at $55,000 a bottle. Mr. Mallory opened it himself while you were napping. This? Wait, $55,000 a bottle?" William stared. Garrick was quicker to the point. "Do you have more of this? I'll buy a bottle right now for $55,000. William looked at Garrick in confusion. Was he joking? Then he understood and asked the butler, "What does it go for on the market?" The butler, relieved to have been asked, smiled. "The auction price last year was $55,000. This bottle came from one of our directors. Otherwise, we'd only have Macallan 1939 or a 55-year-old. One bottle isn't enough," Garrick mused. "Macallan 1946 would be better." William's instincts clicked into place. A director who'd gone out of his way to provide the 26 must want something in return. Trying to get in touch with William with only a bottle would have been too blunt, so Garrick had dangled the more mythical 46 to flatter him. The butler hedged. There were only 40 bottles of the 26 rebottled in the 80s. I've never heard of an auction record for the 46. Enjoy what's in front of you. William waved the butler away. He didn't have time to placate a director. He didn't care about the 55,000. He only regretted not being able to claim it. Garrick watched him for a sign of offense. When none appeared, he relaxed. The two men drank and snacked. Half an hour later, Garrick, now a little tipsy, smiled. "I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want first?" "With wine like this, the good news," Garrick said easily. "The good news is my people have contacted Silva's mistress and turned her. If you still want to go ahead with what we discussed in the castle forest, have Craig contact her. If you don't want to continue, I can tell you right now where Silva is." "Discussed in the forest?" Garrick paused and then realized the reference to whether Silva should be killed. Seeing William's calm face, his own racing heart settled. "It's only been a few days, and you've not only found Silva's mistress, but flipped her. William, how did you do it?" William made a grip with his fingers like counting money. "That's the bad news. 10 million and a new identity. The money should come from you, right?" Garrick's mouth twitched. "You're joking, right? I admire your capitalism, but don't count on that. You won't get that kind of money from me. I can't just allocate treasury funds on a whim. The safety committee's money is controlled by the exchequer. People can lose their heads over special policies that cost the treasury hundreds of millions. And you want me to squeeze money out of the chancellor? You must be drunk." William's mind raced. "Then you have to help me promote the equipment Bond is using. Otherwise, I'll lose a lot. 10 million just to buy information on Silva." Garrick smirked. "Your words might fool others, but not me. If the intel cost more than $1 million, I'll approve the purchase of 10 sets of Type 10 equipment from you. If it costs less than $1 million, you give me 5 sets for free. Christ, I'll be the one bleeding money to help you, and you're bargaining over this?" William snapped, taking a big gulp. Garrick had studied William. He knew William only ever thought in terms of self-interest. He toyed with refusing, but feared that without some incentive, William might make mischief. "Fine. After this, I'll lead several departments to test your equipment. Whether they buy it will be up to you. I have to go to work now." Garrick drained his glass and headed to the door. He paused, looking over William's shoulder. "Some things, once decided, you have to see through. If you say you'll send her to God, then send her to God. A person must keep their word, right, William?" William turned, raised his glass, and offered a toast. "You can count on me. Just be sure you've thought it through." After Garrick left, William instructed Sunday to transfer the deposit to Severine and to extend Bond's access to the equipment. He then started planning how to promote the new gear. When Severine received the $5 million deposit, memories of the recording Christmas had, her saying in her sleep that she should kill Silva, weighed on her. With Christmas promising to discreetly protect her, she didn't hesitate long. She told him where Silva was hiding and agreed on a secret signal, then returned to the Golden Dragon Hotel as if nothing had happened, waiting for Bond to make his move. With Severine acting as an inside agent, the plan fell into place. Bond boarded the ship to meet Silva. Meanwhile, the Expendables used the time difference to their advantage. Caesar and Rode drove a speedboat to a rendezvous point and took Barney, Christmas, Gunner, and Yin Yang to a small island. From a distance, the four slipped into diving gear and came ashore silently under cover of night. Caesar and Rode then returned to the Malaysian base to wait for a signal. When it came, they would fly a hind-attack helicopter to the island to join the others. On the island, Barney and his team worried Silva might have an emergency escape route. or might not even be present. They didn't rush to search. Instead, they set an ambush and waited for him to show himself. They held position through the night. Early the next morning, a small sailboat was spotted approaching the shore. Barney signaled sharply. "Guests arriving. Deploy the Black Blade drone. Our primary objective is Silva. We capture him first. Only then do we do anything else. Understood?" "Understood, boss," Christmas, Gunnar, and Yin Yang replied, already moving into their roles. Chapter 184. Christmas activated the equipment for a moment, and a Black Blade drone, no larger than a finger, rose silently from the ledge of the adjacent high rise. "Boss, the drone is airborne," he reported. "Good. Tell Bond we're in position," came the reply. The four of them put on goggles that looked like heavy protective eyewear. Gunnar adjusted his for comfort, flicked them on, checked the wrist sensors, and readied his rifle. A moment later, a voice in his earpiece announced, "Data synchronization complete." Gunnar lowered his gun and grinned. "You know, if everyone had these auto-aiming goggles, the whole world would be sharpshooters." Barney chuckled. "Not likely, Gunnar. Do you really think our boss would distribute anything that could threaten him? Besides, not everyone can afford this gear." Yin Yang interrupted. "You're wrong, Barney. Didn't you hear Sunday's presentation? These devices self-destruct after use, so they won't be valuable on the market. The real value is Sunday. Without the AI system, the hardware is just trinkets. The boss will sell the system, and a set will go for at least $100,000. If you don't believe me, ask Sunday." "Sorry, Mr. Yin Yang," Christmas said into his mic. "Mr. Devonshire quoted equipment a tier below this at £10 million. Yin Yang stared. Sunday's words hit him so hard he almost choked. Gunnar crossed himself and exclaimed, "God, our boss is going to make a fortune." "Enough." Barney cut them off. "The feed is linked to Bond's optics. He's acknowledged our signal. Time to move." He turned to Christmas. "Gunnar and I will back Bond. Yin Yang, you and Christmas head to the plaza and wait." "Got it," Yin Yang and Christmas answered. They moved quietly through the building as Bond and Severine's voices filtered into their earpieces. Severine sounded unusually upbeat. When they first landed, she had seen Christmas's prearranged signal at the pier and realized the others were already on the island. Her nervousness eased. "Ever wonder why this island was abandoned?" she asked, smiling. 3 years ago, Silva liked the location and spread rumors about a chemical leak. He hacked the island's broadcast system and put out a fake investigation report claiming a leak had occurred. Within a day, everyone packed up and fled. Ingenious, right? Bond's face twisted into a sneer. "What's so impressive? Silva was just digging for a hidden nest. A rat is a rat. He finds its nest where no map shows." Severine laughed too loudly. "Yes, he's a rat. Good luck, Mr. Bond. Hope we chat again." She sounded almost hysterical. "No problem," Bond replied. At that, Silva's men separated them. Bond was marched into a building by 5 guards and shoved into a chair in the lobby, his hands bound behind him. A few minutes later, the elevator began descending. 10 seconds after it stopped, a figure stepped out onto the lobby floor. "Welcome to my little island, Mr. Bond," Silva said smoothly. "I hope you'll like it here." Across the street, Barney's earpiece crackled with Sunday's voice. Barney and Gunnar exchanged looks and sent a short message to Bond. "Sunday confirms it's Silva. We'll move in 3 minutes. Stay put unless we tell you otherwise." Bond smiled and stayed seated. Silva, pacing slowly, launched into a story. "My grandmother once owned a small island," Silva began. "We went there on vacation and found it swarming with rats that fed on coconuts. They ruined our holiday. My grandmother had a plan. We collected all the coconuts and found oil drums. We put some coconut meat in the drums and set wooden planks so the rats could climb in. At night, the rats would scramble into the drums. What do you do then? Burn them? Fill the barrels with sand? Boring. You ignore them. Hungry, the rats turn on each other until only 2 are left. You release those 2 rats trained to eat other rats. Those 2 become predators that clear the island." He fixed Bond with a cold stare. "You and I are those last 2 rats. We eat whoever's in our way." Bond met him calmly. "I'm different. I'm here by choice." "You think that?" Silva scoffed. "From the first day they noticed you, they shaped you. They wrap us in cheap patriotism and make us volunteer. When we're useless, they throw us away. Want to see your test scores? They'll tell you everything about who ends up dead. They'll use your loyalty to send you to your death, Mr. Bond. No, Bond said quietly. What I do isn't for them. It's for an old friend you killed, and for my beliefs. Villains like you die because they talk too much. Silva's smile thinned. Before he could order his men to act, Bond shouted, "Now!" Gunfire erupted from the building across the street. 3 of the 5 guards collapsed instantly. A burly figure swept through the doorway and rolled aside as 2 precise shots dropped the remaining 2 with headshots. Barney stood in the doorway, hand over his ear. "Clear. Team 2, 3, 4. Handle the rest," he barked. With the immediate threat neutralized, Bond rose and walked over to Barney. Barney produced a small knife and cut Bond's ropes. Bond rubbed his numb wrists, picked up a pistol, and grinned at Silva. "So you gonna read me my test scores?" Silva sank back into his chair, unruffled. "Your psychological profile says drug and alcohol dependency, pathological refusal to follow orders, and trauma in childhood. It recommended ending field missions and considering dismissal. Isn't that charming?" "You got me," Bond replied with a dry laugh. "If I hadn't failed your tests, would you have come so confidently?" A few more shots cracked in the distance as Christmas's voice finally came through both Bond and Barney's earpieces. "Sorry, Barney. We were too late. Severine's dead. Silva's men killed her." Bond's face went hard. Barney, still masked and goggled, let out a long, regretful breath. "You know my boss. He cares about money, but he doesn't break his word for $5 million. Ask Mr. Silva about Severine's death." Barney instructed Christmas to call Caesar and Highway to bring a helicopter. Bond stared at Silva. "You planned to get rid of Severine all along." Silva laughed, a cold, casual sound. "Who keeps a disloyal woman? I discard anything useless when I'm finished with it." "Good," Bond said flatly. "That applies to you too. When you're useless, I'll take care of you myself." 3 days after Silva's capture, William, holed up in the hotel, finally finished machining all the Mark II components. He felt a rare lightness and opened a bottle of Macallan 1956. As he drank, he listened to Sunday simulate the flight parameters and operating procedures for the Mark II. Sunday's main server couldn't fully handle the workload, but a solution presented itself. They could distribute the computation and run the simulation in stages. Williams smiled into his glass. The work was far from over, but for the first time in days, things felt under control. Chapter 185. I rented 5 or 6 large commercial servers and split the workload. Confidential data stayed on the castle servers, while non-confidential processing ran on the rented machines. It saved time and a great deal of money that would otherwise have gone into buying hardware. "Sir," Sunday reported, "the Mark II suit assembly is feasible. However, without precise energy specifications for the miniature arc reactor, we can't predict exact operating time. The damping system's effects and the pulse energy cannon's output are also uncertain. We'll need a large testing ground and specialized assembly equipment." William thought for a moment. "Keep an eye out for villas on Kensington Gardens," he said. "It has to be a large property, preferably with a pre-existing basement, and place an order with a London machinery firm for an automated assembly line for the Mark suits." "Understood, sir. The order has been placed. I'll inform you as soon as there's news about a villa." A few minutes later, Sunday added, "Sir, Mr. Mallory is calling. Would you like me to connect him?" "Connect him?" Gareth's voice came through almost immediately. "Good morning, William. Silva has just been discreetly brought back to England. What are your plans?" "What I do is my business. I'll tell you if I need your help. For now, wait patiently." William's tone sharpened. "Are you sure she's secured? How could she cause trouble if she's locked up?" "Don't be naive. Silva's capture is only the beginning. A few days ago, I learned she hired a mercenary squad through a broker. They're on standby in London." William took a slow sip of whiskey and let the silence hang. Then he said, "You don't need to worry about how she'll get out. Knowing too much does you no good, and it only makes you twitchy. Keep your expression steady." "All right," Gareth said reluctantly. "But mind MI6, William. We can't let her rise again. She's been after your family's secrets." "Mind your own business," William snapped. "Here's some advice. Don't be eager, or you'll expose yourself. The people behind Silva are powerful. Let Craig run in front and draw the fire. We'll stay in the shadows and collect the spoils." Gareth paused, then sighed. "Fine. I hope nothing goes wrong. Bye. One more thing, Gareth added before hanging up. There's a hearing at 2 this afternoon. If you want to come, I can get you an invitation. No need, William said with a smile. I already have one. Money opens doors, remember? And Gareth, work on your connections, or we'll be on different levels soon. I'm sending you a suit. Put it on as soon as it arrives. See you this afternoon. A suit? Gareth sounded puzzled. At the hotel restaurant at lunch, William hadn't been there long when Gareth burst in. He came straight to William's table, pulled out a chair, and whispered, "Can this suit really stop a pistol shot?" William didn't answer directly. He snapped his fingers. The nearby hotel butler, Derek, hurried over and bowed. "Mr. Devonshire, how may I help you?" "Derek, please order Mr. Mallory the same lunch as mine. Normal portion," William said, then poured red wine and pushed the glass toward Gareth. "This is a first-run Latour from '64. Try it." "Why did you send me a bulletproof suit? Is something going to happen?" Gareth asked, eyeing the glass. William glanced at his watch. "Some things haven't happened yet, so I won't make promises. The suit will stop a close-range handgun shot, though it'll still hurt. I'm sending you an extra set as a friend. If you want more later, they're £5 million apiece. For today, let's eat. The hearing starts soon. Wear the earpiece I sent you." "Thanks. I don't have $5 million to spare, but 2 sets will do for special occasions." Gareth finished quickly and left. William stayed until 1:30, then took the hotel car to the hearing. As he stepped out, Sunday whispered in his earpiece, "Sir, Silva has escaped from the Churchill war rooms, as you predicted. Bond is in pursuit. The mercenaries she hired are assembling nearby. Shall I alert the standby commando unit?" "No," William said calmly. "Just keep an eye on them." He entered the hearing hall, took a seat near the left door, and told Sunday, "Open Mallory's channel." "The channel is connected, sir," Sunday confirmed. William smiled and greeted Catherine Davis on the dais, then spoke quietly into his earpiece. "Gareth, you have 2 choices." "What?" Gareth whispered back from the main table, his expression unreadable. "I just got word Silva escaped from the Churchill war rooms and is heading this way. 2 options. 1, do nothing and let her be taken out. 2, risk saving her using the suit you sent. If you don't get unlucky and take a shot to the head, you'll survive." William's voice was steady. "Option 1 ends this cleanly and avoids future trouble. Option 2 earns you the gratitude of MI6 and could help you seize control down the line. Your call." He wouldn't make that decision for Gareth. He didn't want to be blamed later. Gareth's silence said everything. The hearing began promptly at 2. After a few minutes of perfunctory remarks, Sunday reported in William's ear, "Silva has detonated part of the London Underground. Bond is trapped in the sewers. Silva is 5 to 8 minutes out." A smile spread across William's face. He leaned forward and whispered, "Gareth, she'll be here any minute. If you want to save her, speak up now." Time crawled. William almost barked into the earpiece. Then a quiet, resigned voice came through. "I have children." "Understood," William said. He knew Gareth's choice made sense. Even when a greater gain was possible, McCarthy instincts and family changed decisions. William closed the channel. "Sunday," he murmured, back in control, "tell Blair Mills in Switzerland to begin the short-selling operation. In an hour, I want headlines about De Beers buying blood diamonds across the network. And first thing tomorrow morning, I want footage of large protests at De Beers headquarters." "Command issued, sir," Sunday replied. A dozen seconds later, "Mr. Mills has acknowledged and will proceed." William let a small, satisfied curl tug at his lip. He kept his expression neutral as the hearing continued, and the room watched him, calm, composed, utterly in control. Chapter 186, William showed no sign of pleasure. Instead, he feigned sleepiness. A few minutes later, people around him and behind his seat noticed him dozing and suppressed amused smiles. They envied him. Only a tycoon like him would dare nod off while Catherine Davis, the Secretary of Security, was giving the keynote. Catherine, at the climax of her speech, was jarred by a sudden snore. She glanced around in annoyance and quickly spotted William. The snore cut the room quiet. Those who had been holding back their laughter now watched him drift in and out of sleep. His head dipped lower and lower until, with a sudden jolt, he nearly toppled to the side. The audience finally laughed outright. William, pretending to be roused by the laughter, awkwardly rubbed his forehead while a voice in his ear, Sunday, kept reporting Silva's position. He muttered under his breath, "Laugh! Laugh now! You won't be laughing for long." The laughter happened to mask the sound of gunfire outside the conference room. A dozen seconds later, as the laughter died down, the conference room door was flung open. 3 men in police uniforms stormed in with guns. They immediately opened fire on the guards in the hall. Bang, bang, bang. A dozen shots rang out. The guards fell before they could draw their weapons. Panic spread through the audience. People dove under chairs. William slipped out through a side door and concealed himself, watching. After the guards were down, Silva raised his pistol and trained it on the terrified crowd, a wide smile on his face. "We meet again, my dear old grandmother," he said, savoring the moment. Seeing the frightened faces filled him with the satisfaction he had dreamed of for the last 3 years. But when it came time to pull the trigger, he hesitated. His smile turned into a sneer. "Repent for your crimes," he roared. His 2 subordinates, anxious at Silva's delay, urged him on. Silva still didn't shoot. Then, as if on instinct, the 2 men suddenly felt a voice in their heads. "No time. The police are coming." The men exchanged looks, swung their guns toward the crowd, and fired. 2 shots cut through the chaos. Their gunfire froze everyone. Silva's eyes went wide as he watched Catherine clutch her chest. "Hurry, boss, hurry! The police are coming!" the 2 men yelled. Only then did Silva snap out of his reverie, sigh, and turn to leave. William, who had been waiting, bolted out the side door, grabbed a fallen guard's pistol, flicked off the safety, checked the magazine, and gave chase. As he stepped back into the hall, William sent out a mental scan, and the layout ahead snapped into focus. He didn't sprint after them. Instead, he moved deliberately, using tactical maneuvers to follow Silva and his men from a distance, mindful that others were watching. He couldn't simply kill Silva in broad daylight. It would invite questions. He watched the 3 make for the exit, then moved to the main doors and fired at the 2 men lagging behind Silva. Bang! Bang! 2 precise shots. Both men took bullets to the forehead, blood spurting as they crumpled, motionless. Outside, the mercenaries waiting by the getaway car aimed Uzi submachine guns and swept fire toward the doorway. William sheltered behind a marble pillar and listened. Only when tires screamed did he peek out. He stepped out slowly, fired his pistol in a burst at the escaping car. Bang, 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 then walked back into the building. Before he reached the conference hall, Garrick intercepted him, and they took the elevator to the top floor. In an office, Catherine Davis stood pale-faced. Seeing William, she cut straight to it. "Did you kill them?" William shook his head. "I took down 2. 1 was picked up by people outside. Sorry, their firepower was too heavy. I couldn't take them all by myself." "Damn it, you bastards," Catherine cursed, dropping any pretense of decorum. If this went badly, she would be in deep trouble. She had organized and chaired today's hearing, and now the head of the Secret Service had been publicly shot. The call from the government in London she knew would be coming next sent a cold prickling through her scalp. She stood by the window, and as she expected, her phone rang a few minutes later. She covered her brow, glanced at the caller ID, hesitated, then answered. William and Garrick exchanged looks. After a moment, Garrick gave William a reassuring nod. William sat down on the sofa with an unreadable expression. Garrick stood rigidly, unwilling to sit. More than 10 minutes later, Catherine approached Garrick, grim and furious. "One day," she hissed. "You've got 1 day. Bring me the mastermind, dead or alive. If you fail, I'll strip every noble under my authority of their titles before I resign. This is on you." Garrick, taken aback by her intensity, quickly nodded. "Understood. I promise to capture Silva alive." "No," Catherine snapped. "I want him dead. Dead men don't talk, and they don't cause trouble. Do you understand?" Chapter 274, Establishing a Special Bulletproof Company. William opened his eyes, surprised that the poker-faced Catherine would cooperate with Garrick and his team. He stood. "So you're allied with Garrick?" "Cooperating," Garrick hurried to correct before Catherine could snap. "Cooperating." William glanced between them and smiled slightly. "Don't be so tense. My request will help both of you." Garrick cut in, eager to show his pliancy. "Anything within reason, and I'll agree." William pointed at Garrick's suit hanging on a wall hanger. "Garrick, take off your jacket and hang it up there. Don't worry, I'll have 2 new ones sent to you tomorrow. No problem, Garrick said, unbuttoning his jacket. A dark brown and a dark blue, please. He shrugged the jacket off and hung it where William indicated. William turned to Catherine. This is your office, so you must have a pistol here, right? Catherine, puzzled, nodded. Yes, why? Good. Miss Davis, please fire a few rounds at that suit. He gestured toward the jacket. You'll understand why. What I want to show you is related to that suit. Intrigued, Catherine opened a drawer to retrieve her pistol. As she did, she shot Garrick an icy glare. Garrick felt discomfited but forced a smile. William gave me that suit around 11 this morning, he offered, trying to diffuse the look. Humph. If you hadn't shielded me during the shooting, would you even be standing here? Catherine snapped, then softened slightly when she saw Garrick's honest expression. It's my duty, Garrick said. You're my superior and an ally. I would always stand in front of you. Cooperation does not equal alliance, Catherine said flatly as she pulled a hand-carved CZ-83 from the drawer and handed it to William. You do it. My marksmanship is mediocre. I won't embarrass myself. William took the pistol and regarded the suit on the hanger. The concept was simple and practical, a wearable bulletproof suit, perfect for someone in her position. He aimed the CZ-83 and prepared to demonstrate. Chapter 187. William took the pistol and examined it for a few moments. Why do all you special agents use the CZ-83? Is this gun really that good? You'll understand its practicality once you try it, Garrett replied with a smile. He handed the pistol to William, who flicked off the safety and loaded a round. How soundproof is this room? It won't attract the guards, will it? It's fine. This office is a bit special and doesn't require guards, Catherine said, giving no explanation for what made it special. William didn't press the taboo topic. He raised his hand and fired at the suit. Bang, bang, bang. 1 shot every second or two. After 10 shots, he checked the pistol, confirmed it was empty, and grinned. Catherine, how about you give me this gun? I'll make you 2 sets of these suits in exchange. He slipped the CZ-83 into his jacket pocket. It was small and fit easily. Garrett, half amused and half annoyed, addressed a nearly fuming Catherine. Don't be angry, Catherine. He's just being overly cautious. He's worried we'll use this gun to plant his fingerprints on something. Give it here. I'll wipe off the prints, Garrett offered, holding out his hand. William, caught red-handed, didn't change expression. He calmly took the gun back out, produced a handkerchief, and began wiping, exhaling against the metal as he cleaned. When he finished, the gun was fogged from his breath. Catherine recoiled, disgusted. She absolutely refused to take it. God, William, you're such a jerk. I don't want this gun anymore. You have to compensate me with an identical handmade pistol. Ha ha, no problem, William said without embarrassment, tucking the pistol back into his pocket. I promise to replace it. Catherine rolled her eyes, then pointed at the suit that had taken 10 rounds. Garrett understood, walked over to the hanger, and brought it back. Catherine lifted the suit to inspect it. 10 deformed bullets lay embedded on the surface. She turned the lining over and found it completely intact, no deformation, no damage. William smiled. The suit's bulletproof rating is level 4. It's made from a nanomaterial. Its thickness is only 1/3 of the military version, so it can be fashioned into any style of clothing. The protection is excellent. If hit by a rifle, it might break a rib, and by a pistol, it would only hurt for a while, unless it's a specialty armor-piercing round that could penetrate the fabric. He shook the suit. The deformed rounds clinked to the floor. It's also dust-proof and waterproof. Unless it gets smeared with oil, it doesn't even need washing. So, are you interested now? Of course. But how do you want to cooperate? Catherine and Garrett looked at William with eager eyes. The suit was so thin, yet its level 4 protection rivaled military plate carriers. On the market, it would be in huge demand among wealthy individuals and politicians. I can't give you shares in the new company right now, William said. Even if I could, you wouldn't dare take them. Catherine smiled and interrupted. No, William, you don't want to give them. If you wanted to, we could legalize the shares. Let's get to what matters. Hopefully you're talking about shares, because otherwise, I'm not interested. All right, William said, accepting defeat. You've seen the protection for yourself, so I don't need to oversell it. I need your connections to promote it. And you want to be part of a promising company, right? They nodded. The current situation is I don't yet know what you'll contribute to the company, William continued. So here are the terms. I'll give you a 10% commission on every suit you sell. The price per set will be £5 million, so the commission is £500,000 per set. You can set up a family fund to receive it through an offshore company. 100 sets would mean £50 million in commissions. As for equity, the new company is valued at £1 billion. After you retire and hold no formal position, for every 100 sets sold, I will sell you 1% of the shares, up to 3% total. If the target is met, a contract for the shares will be signed immediately. Catherine asked eagerly, "For example?" William smiled. "For example, whether you can secure a government or large institutional order for our suits." "That's impossible. At £5 million a set, no country can afford to equip their entire forces," Catherine said at once. "And how do I know that when you sell shares later, you won't set an impossible price and block us out?" "How do you know it won't work if you don't try?" William replied. "And don't worry about valuation. I want partners, not enemies. If you meet the targets, the share contract is guaranteed. Money like this doesn't come around often. If we weren't all on the same team, you might never see an opportunity like this." Catherine and Garrett considered it, then said, "That sounds reasonable. The specifics should be handled by lawyers." "No problem," William said. They discussed a few more details. With money on the table, the immediate business of catching the culprit was barely mentioned. At this moment, money was king. Although Kevlar had been around for decades, it had two fatal flaws. It degraded under ultraviolet light and hydrolyzed when exposed to water. High humidity gradually reduced its protective effect. The new material William showed them was thin, flexible, and did not suffer those problems. There was no doubt it would sell well. Even without shares, Catherine and Garrett would have been willing to help promote it for the commissions alone. With shares added, their enthusiasm increased. Catherine believed she could sell 300 sets in England by herself. After the deal was settled, the mood lightened. Catherine, in her old-fashioned, flattered way, addressed William with a hint of warmth. "William, when this is done, I should treat you to a big meal to show my thanks." "That's easy," William glanced at his watch. "It's 3:10 now. If you place the order, my people can finish by 5, and then we can go to dinner. I know a new Michelin 3-star in Chelsea. Their head chef, Gordon Ramsay, makes an amazing pan-fried cheese and pure chicken sandwich." Garrett grinned. "Is it the same kind we had at your castle last time?" William nodded. "Exactly." "Then it's definitely worth a visit," Garrett said to Catherine. "I strongly recommend it. Gordon Ramsay cooks brilliantly, and I hear it's not too expensive for what you get." "All right, we'll go," Catherine said, tempted by their praise. At that moment, the phone on her desk rang. She tapped speaker, and voice sharpening, said, "What is it?" "Madam, Commander Richard Bromley, who handles special terrorist incidents in London, is here. Also, 007 wishes to see you. Let them in," Catherine ordered. Given the incident that had just occurred, it was no surprise Bond would be involved. A moment later, James Bond and Commander Bromley entered, led by Catherine's secretary. William rose, shook Bond's hand, and clapped him on the shoulder. "My condolences, Craig." Chapter 188. "Thank you," Craig said, his voice stiff. "This is all my fault. If I hadn't told him about your plan, I wouldn't have asked to bring Silva back to England. I should have just killed him on that island." "Oh, don't dwell on that. It's good you're here. We were just discussing how to neutralize Silva," Catherine replied. Commander Bromley heard that and exchanged a look with Catherine. She nodded. "That's right. William has some intelligence. We were discussing how to capture Silva." "What do you mean? You already knew where the mastermind Silva was?" Bromley asked in surprise. "If you knew where he was, why did he get killed?" "You'll have to ask Mr. Bond why Silva escaped from the Secret Service," Gareth said coldly. Faced with Gareth's accusation, Bond stammered and couldn't give a coherent answer. He didn't want William and Bromley to know the extent of the Secret Service's failures. "Tell me why," Catherine ordered, her mind racing. Bond's voice wavered. "We were careless. The computer we brought back had a Trojan horse Silva had installed. When we cracked the device, the Trojan infiltrated our server, opened Silva's cell, and he escaped via an underground passage. The conclusion left everyone grim. It was gross negligence. "That's unacceptable," William suddenly said. "If you knew Silva had escaped, why didn't you tell us right away? If we'd known in time, we could have set a trap and waited for him. There wouldn't have been any slaughter." "We did send a message to your assistant, Bill," Bond protested. "I just asked Bill. He said you insisted on finishing the hearing before leaving. No one expected Silva to move so fast, nor that he'd have accomplices in London." Gareth sneered. "I don't think you didn't expect it. I think you were afraid of airing your dirty laundry and wanted to handle it yourselves." Bond had no answer. That accusation landed like a slap. If they had notified security at the hearing, Silva and his men, even in police uniforms, couldn't have simply forced their way in. Seeing Bond's expression, Gareth cursed. "This is dereliction of duty, criminally stupid. Because of your arrogance, we've lost a major contributor to the country and badly damaged our reputation. By tomorrow, the world will mock our incompetence." Turning to Catherine, he added, "Madam, I recommend a large-scale review of the Secret Service." Catherine nodded. "I will report this to the chief. The Security Council will temporarily take over the Secret Service's day-to-day operations until a new head is appointed. Commander Bromley will be in charge of the operation to capture Silva." She looked at Bromley. "Any issues, Commander?" "No, madam. I guarantee I will complete the mission." Bromley couldn't refuse a direct order. He nodded and saluted. "Very well. William, tell Commander Bromley the intelligence you have once more," Catherine said sternly. William inwardly bristled at how deftly Gareth and Catherine had shifted blame and seized control, but he complied. "Finding Silva so quickly was a bit of luck. My team had been monitoring an underground broker recruiting mercenaries to England. He's a second-hand fixer who will work for anyone with enough money. When we learned he was bringing mercenaries in, we put them under surveillance. We planned to catch them all in one sweep, but it turned out their employer was Silva. After the incident, I told my people not to act. I had them follow discreetly. Then I came here to report to Madame Catherine." "Where are they now?" Bromley asked. William touched his earpiece. The operative on the line, Sunday, reported, "Sir Silva and his group are currently in an abandoned warehouse in West London. A commando unit is monitoring them 5 kilometers out." "So Silva's in an abandoned warehouse on the western edge of London," Bromley said. "My men are in position and can move on your command." Bromley wouldn't let William steal the credit for the capture. "No," he added quickly, "handling a terrorist incident falls under my jurisdiction. Only my team can carry this out." William glanced at Catherine and Gareth, shrugged, and said, "Fine, I don't care." Catherine's serious face finally softened. "Commander Bromley, I expect good news before I leave today," she said. "Understood, madam." He saluted and left. Bond smiled mechanically and followed. After Bromley and Bond were gone, Catherine turned to William and Gareth. "Gentlemen, since we share goals, I'll be frank. I don't want that defector Silva brought into the interrogation room alive. If he survives, it will only underline how incompetent the Secret Service has been under my leadership, and that will harm me politically. Make sure he doesn't walk into that room." "Consider it done," William said. "Anyone who gets in the way of our making money should be disposed of." He stood, buttoned his jacket, and smiled. "Let's meet at Gordon's Western Restaurant in Chelsea at 6. William's confidence put Catherine at ease. She beamed, rose, and personally escorted William and Gareth to the door. "If you need anything, call me. Reasonable requests will be approved." "Thank you. See you at the restaurant." "See you." Outside, as they got into the car, Gareth warned, "Are you really going to try to pull Catherine in? She's ruthless. Don't be fooled by her eagerness. If anyone stands in her way, she won't hesitate to crush them." William laughed. "Do I need her mercy? No. I don't want to get into politics with her. I just need her to help me make money. I don't need special favors for the new company, just the right environment. I need your connections, Gareth, and for you to smooth policy issues. The rest is about money. As long as we spend it in the right places, the amount is secondary. Making money is as easy for me as hunting wild boar." He started the car, buckled his seatbelt, and followed Sunday's navigation toward the Expendables. A breaking news bulletin crackled on the radio. De Beers had been secretly buying African blood diamonds for decades at rock-bottom prices, 10 to 20 times below market value. William laughed out loud. After listening for a few minutes and watching Gareth's keen interest, an idea took shape. "Look," William said with a grin, "a money-making opportunity just landed in our laps. You've got a family fund, right?" Gareth's eyes lit up. "Of course." "Don't look at me like I'm handing you the whole thing," William said, "but this is ripe. Plenty of influential groups are furious that De Beers' secret buying has indirectly funded rebel groups. I can make sure the right people get the story, stir up the outrage. If their enemies push hard enough, it'll tank their stock and create opportunities for us." "Why be so vague? You're just looking to profit from chaos," Gareth said. William only smiled. After a beat, Gareth asked, "Is it too late to get into the futures on this?" Chapter 189. People who trade futures aren't fools. If bad news comes out, who in their right mind would take the long side against short sellers? Garrick scoffed. William laughed. "No fools in the futures market, only winners and losers. Today's story is just a starter. The crucial evidence hasn't been released yet, so this is the last chance to short De Beers." Garrick frowned. "Why? Who would bet on a rise against short sellers at a time like this?" "This isn't the first time De Beers has been linked to blood diamonds," William said. "Every few years, some scandal pops up, but it never sticks. In the past, when the stock plunged, De Beers would buy back shares and then stage a dazzling reveal, a rare rough diamond pulled from an existing mine or a newly announced deposit, and the stock would rebound instantly. Because of that pattern, some people are willing to risk the short. But this time it's different. Their acquisition, smuggling, processing, and sales are all exposed. There's evidence of top executives making deals with their own hands. If I were you, I'd call right now and tell someone to short De Beers. I can guarantee at least a 30% return, probably more." "Are you sure?" Garrick asked, a little nervous. "Absolutely," William said. "I'm helping you out of friendship." Hearing how William had become a billionaire in less than a year made Garrick's pulse quicken. "Okay, drop me off up ahead. I'll leave Silva's matter to you. You can handle it, right?" "No problem," William said. He pulled over at the intersection. As Garrick climbed out, William added, "If you want to get rich, keep your mouth shut." "Of course," Garrick replied earnestly. "I won't tell a soul. Good luck. Try to reserve a table at Gordon's if you can. I'll find you after this. Bye." William watched Garrick pull out his phone and make a call through the rearview mirror and couldn't help smiling. Garrick wouldn't keep quiet, of that he was sure. Given his temperament, Garrick would rope others in to spread the risk. When there's money on the table, nobles and capitalists don't hesitate to jump in. Their involvement wouldn't hurt William's profits. On the contrary, it would muddy the waters, provide distractions and targets, and reduce the chance De Beers focused on him. He wouldn't be so generous otherwise. Letting others share the take wasn't a betrayal. William was making money, and that was all that mattered. He arrived at the surveillance point where Barney and the team were waiting and climbed into a medium-sized truck. Barney and Christmas greeted him as he stepped inside. "We've split into 3 teams," Barney briefed. "Caesar and Highway are ambushing 3 kilometers ahead at the highway exit. Gunnar's on overwatch outside the warehouse with a sniper. Yin Yang is his spotter. Christmas and I are mobile. We're ready to move in as assault if needed." William looked at the monitor and saw Silva hunched over a keyboard, fingers flying. "Who is he in touch with?" he asked. Barney shrugged. "Sorry, boss. My clearance doesn't go that high. If you want to know, you'll have to ask Sunday." William snapped his fingers. From the truck's comms came Sunday's calm voice. "Sir, I'll need authorization to infiltrate the network." "Granted," William said. A few minutes later, Sunday reported, "Sir, I've traced Silva's connections. He's been in contact with someone named Ernst Blofeld. The conversations include the full account of the lady's death." "Has Silva suspected the Expendables?" William interrupted. "No, sir," Sunday replied. Barney and Christmas both exhaled. William smiled. "Keep going." Ernst Blofeld, born Franz Oberhauser, is the biological son of Hannes Oberhauser, Mr. Bond's adoptive father and the current head of Spectre. "Where is Franz now?" "Italy." William rubbed his chin. For a moment, the idea of eliminating Franz, the man at the center of Britain's intelligence nightmares, crossed his mind. He discarded it quickly. Britain's internal politics and vendettas weren't his concern. Offing Franz now wouldn't help him. Keeping Franz alive might even be useful. Besides, power comes and goes depending on governance. Whoever ruled didn't matter to William unless it threatened his interests. Still, he allowed himself a perfunctory greeting. Sunday, have the London Special Counterterrorism teams surrounded Silva yet? Sir, 4 teams, 36 operatives, are in position. We're waiting on Commander Bromley to give the order. William glanced at his watch and grumbled, "They're taking their time. It's been almost 50 minutes. Kick them into gear." Sunday, cut Silva's network. He turned to Christmas. Seeing no reaction on his face, William continued, "We can't let him talk about the expendables. When the network's down, have Gunnar use the chaos to take Silva out, and send a coffee delivery to our friend in Italy, Mr. Franz. When the coffee is about to be delivered, leave this note. Dear Mr. Oberhauser, this coffee is sent to you by the Lady from Heaven. She invites you to visit her new home in heaven when you have time." "Understood, sir," Sunday replied without missing a beat. "Good. Now let's watch the show," William said, grinning. "Anyone want a drink?" Barney laughed and opened the truck's small cabinet. "Sorry, boss. Limited stock. Only beer." "Perfect," William said, popped a can, and took a long pull. On the screen, Silva suddenly leapt to his feet, shouting, "Something's happening! Something's happening!" Within a minute, the men in the warehouse were arming themselves. With both sides aware of each other, the whole thing promised to be far more interesting. William drained another gulp. "Sunday, can we get Commander Bromley's face up? I want to see how dark it is." "No problem, sir." Bromley's stern, weathered face filled one of the monitors. The spotter's feed confirmed what they had seen. Silva and his group had suddenly armed themselves and were preparing to fight rather than surrender. Bromley's jaw tightened as he reached for his radio, ready to give the order. William set his can down and watched the screen, a smile playing at his lips as the situation finally began to move. Chapter 190, Bromley made a snap decision. He grabbed his radio and barked, "Damn it! How did they find us? Attack! Kill anyone who resists on sight. Snipers, provide cover." Gunfire erupted the instant the order went out. The London SWAT team had advanced only a few meters before colliding with Silva's men. Bullets cracked and ricocheted. Fighters on both sides went down. William laughed, watching Bromley's grim face. "Now you know you can't snatch my credit so easily, right?" Behind him, Barney and Christmas exchanged a glance. Christmas shrugged and spread his hands helplessly, mouthing to Barney, "See? I told you anyone who pisses off the boss doesn't get a good end." Barney nodded, watching William's expression. William, who had been using his perception to monitor them, sensed their exchange and without turning, snarled, "Don't think I don't know you two are causing trouble behind my back. Do that again, and your bonuses are gone." "Sorry, boss." The two muttered, but their faces betrayed no real remorse. Christmas stared in wonder. How had William known? Barney pointed at the feed on the screen and shrugged. Both assumed Sunday had relayed their actions. Even so, the numbers and equipment favored the SWAT team. Within 10 minutes, Silva's unit had been pushed back. After losing 7 or 8 men, the mercenaries were driven into the warehouse and forced into close-quarters urban fighting. "These guys are done," Barney said. "Mercenaries in urban engagement against specially trained SWAT, it's suicide. Their only options are to fight to the death or surrender." The SWAT officers began lobbing flashbangs. Dozens detonated with high, piercing booms, and 3 teams breached the warehouse behind officers carrying ballistic shields. A fierce gunfight raged inside. Minutes later, the firing started to peter out. "Sunday, has Gunnar still not found a shot?" William asked with concern. "Sorry, sir. Silva is staying tucked around the corner inside the warehouse. Mr. Gunnar hasn't been able to get a clear angle," came the reply. William lowered his head, thinking for a few seconds. "Pull up the warehouse blueprints." A 3D rendering of the warehouse appeared on the monitor, a red dot marking Silva's position. William pointed at a wall on the plan. "What's the thickness of that wall, and what is it made of?" According to the blueprints, it's a steel frame warehouse. Wall thickness is 160 millimeters, 2 layers of corrugated steel with rock wool insulation between them. "Can Gunnar's rifle penetrate that?" Before Sunday answered, Barney cut in. "Gunnar's running a military-grade ABU with magnum rounds. Penetration won't be a problem. Good. Sunday, calculate the firing solution and transmit it to Gunner. He has 10 seconds to take the shot. When time's up, regardless of outcome, he must withdraw immediately. William turned to Christmas. Christmas, go meet Gunner and Yin Yang. Be careful, SWAT's already taken heavy losses today. Dealing with them on the move will be messy. Safety first, understood? Understood, sir. Christmas snapped a salute and left the vehicle. Barney, still watching the screen, suddenly said, "Thanks, boss." William gave him a half smile. "No need. You're my people. I look out for you. I don't want to be raising kids for you old guys." Barney chuckled. "Still, thank you, boss." William let the remark drop. After so many operations, the Expendables were people he could trust up to a point. He wouldn't send them into needless sacrificial situations unless it became necessary. They sold their lives for money. Casualties happened in war. "Sir, the firing date has been calculated and transmitted. Gunner can fire now." "Then take him out," William ordered. "Understood." About 800 meters from the warehouse, Gunner and Yin Yang lay prone on a low rise, camouflaged and motionless. Yin Yang watched the indicator on his glasses and whispered, "Gunnar, you can shoot." "All right, don't rush me." Gunnar took a breath. "I need to calm down. With these glasses and the sensor on my wrist, I don't even have to factor wind or temperature. It tells me where to aim. Makes me want to swear. The old men might be obsolete soon." "Shut up and shoot. Sunday is counting us down." "Fuck, I'm zeroing my breathing. Don't talk." Gunnar fell silent and focused, following Sunday's instructions. A single shot thundered, the muzzle blast flattening the grass around it. Gunnar cycled the bolt, preparing for another round, even though he couldn't immediately tell if he'd hit. "Fuck, it's down. The red dot's gone." Yin Yang breathed, disbelief and relief in his voice. "It hit. Looks like we really are retiring." Back in the surveillance vehicle, William had waited 10 seconds too long. He snatched the radio from Barney. "Retreat. Both of you. Fall back now. Follow Sunday's instructions. Christmas is 600 meters out. Rendezvous there." "Understood, boss." Gunnar and Yin Yang packed fast, hugging trees and bushes for cover as they worked their way back. After 4 or 5 tense minutes, they reached Christmas's vehicle. Following Sunday's guidance to avoid cameras, they slipped away, met up with Caesar and Rode a few kilometers out, and drove back toward London. William ordered Sunday to keep only one unedited video and delete all other recordings from the devices. He gave Barney a few last cautions, climbed out, and they parted. William watched Barney drive off, then got into his car, sat behind the wheel, and closed his eyes. Word of Silva's death spread through the mercenaries. With their leader gone, resistance collapsed. One by one, the remaining fighters began to surrender. At the temporary command post outside the warehouse, Commander Blomley, still furious over the heavy casualties, received a report that the enemy had laid down arms. "What's going on? Why would they surrender now?" Blomley demanded, scowling at the temporary commanders around him. No one had a clear answer. A female officer advised caution. "Sir, the situation's unclear. They could be trying to lure us into a trap. Send drones to recon the warehouse and order them to come out with their hands up." "Do it," Blomley said. That delay was costly. By the time Blomley gave the recon order, more than 10 minutes had passed. The Expendables had already been gone for over 20 minutes, and the lead three, Christmas, Gunner, and Yin Yang, had merged into the London traffic. The SWAT team had the warehouse fully secured before Bromley, flanked by the frontline commander, finally approached the corner where Silva lay. A fist-sized hole marked the wall. Silva was on the floor, a gunshot wound in his back. Bromley stood for a long moment without speaking. He had a good idea who was responsible, but he couldn't say so aloud. How could he admit that the credit for taking out the gang leader had been lost because he, the commander, had effectively stolen someone else's mission? Worse, he was wary of William's reach. In more than 20 years on the job, he had never heard of anyone capable of killing a target with a single, precise shot through a wall. If he were the target, he doubted he'd have escaped such a shot. "Sir, what should we do next?" The frontline commander had waited too long without orders and finally spoke up. Bromley let out a sigh. Some things had to be kept close. "Call the team off." "But sir, shouldn't we pursue the third party?" The commander, reluctant to let it go with a dozen officers injured or killed, and only a handful of low-level thugs captured pushed back. I told you to call off the team. The rest is not for you to know. Bromley, already tense, fixed the man with a hard look. The air went quiet. He felt the weight of so many eyes on him and knew he couldn't leave them completely in the dark. Those at the commander level stay. Everyone else, go about your business. The temporary commanders read the message. Bromley didn't want the rank and file to be told. They exchanged glances, nodded, and the squad leaders shepherded their men away. The survivors didn't go far. Out of 36 in Team 4, fewer than 20 had come through the fight unhurt. 5 or 6 were dead, and several seriously wounded might not live. Without a reasonable explanation, the survivors wouldn't let this rest. "All right," Bromley said after a moment. "I'll tell you what I can, based on your security clearance. After that, whether you appeal is your business." He understood their need for answers, but he also knew discipline mattered, and insubordination was unforgivable. The modern world was different. Men could resign if they were unhappy. If he didn't explain, someone would blame him. So he relented. "We have several covert teams," he said. "Some have authority so high, only a few top-level officials can order them. The team involved today operates at the highest clearance. I only know of them because I met their leader under special circumstances. From what I understand, even Madame Catherine, the Secretary of State for Security, doesn't know the specific members of this team. If you want to appeal, I can bring it to Catherine's attention, but you know how that'll go. As for credit, they won't compete with us. It's meaningless to them. For casualty compensation, I can push to get double. If you make noise, maybe even triple." "How is that possible?" several commanders exclaimed. The frontline operational commander asked, incredulous. "Really that much?" Bromley nodded. "My word stands. They won't contest the claim that we took the gang leader. If you insist on the specifics of Silva's death, I'll report it as the result of a stray bullet. Any more questions?" Silence answered him. Faced with no risk to their careers, no loss of credit, and the promise of increased compensation, the commanders accepted the compromise. One by one, they saluted. "Understood, sir. Thank you, sir." Bromley returned the salute. "Then move. Get back to work." He fixed the frontline operational commander with a final look. "Davis, prepare a report. You're suspended until the investigation is over." Davis saluted immediately. He knew that failing to control his men meant hard times. Not being stripped of command outright was a mercy for old acquaintanceship. Bromley's move to secure larger compensation for the men was meant to be restitution. After instructing Davis to have someone cover up the immediate evidence of Silva's death, Bromley left the warehouse alone, climbed into his car, and called William. He had to tread carefully. He had no hard evidence, but he wanted what he could get. The call connected quickly. "Good afternoon, Bromley. Something I can help with?" William's voice sounded cheerful. The more upbeat he was, the more Bromley's temper frayed. "We need to talk," Bromley said, keeping his voice low. "Talk about what? How you stole my mission?" "You know what I mean. I'm not here to blame. Let's call it even. You killed Silva. I took credit. We're on the same side, are we not?" William laughed. "Look at you. Call it even. Why don't we meet and talk? I've invited Catherine and Gareth to dinner at Gordon's in Chelsea. Join us if you're free." "All right. See you soon." Bromley hung up. He was furious, but he needed favors. He had to endure. William smiled as he set his phone down. He amused himself thinking how shameless Bromley was. The man could still manage dinner plans after his team had taken heavy losses, and he didn't yet know that William had orchestrated the mercenaries' early preparations. Half an hour later, William arrived at Gordon's and waited in his car until another vehicle pulled in. Bromley stepped out, grim-faced. William honked and waved. Bromley walked over and climbed into the passenger seat. "Is it handled?" William asked. Bromley's jaw tightened. "Don't tell me you didn't know what would happen. If we hadn't been friends, this wouldn't have been so easy to smooth over." William's smile widened. "I thought I was helping you, actually. Didn't you want my intervention? Consider it a favor. Don't you owe me one?" That was the final straw. Bromley glared at him. "Fuck you, because I took your mission. 6 of my men dead, 3 critically injured, 11 lightly hurt. If you wanted my gratitude, you should have told me the details beforehand. My people wouldn't be suffering like this otherwise." Chapter 192. Ha, mate, I wanted to tell you, but you never asked. There was another thought in William's head that he didn't voice. Even if you had asked, I wouldn't have told you, and I'd have lied too. Everyone would try to steal credit or grab a slice of the pie. So don't act like a victim. If anyone's a victim here, it's the SWAT officers who were hurt and killed. Do you think your team would keep following you if morale collapses? A team's hard to lead when everyone's doubting you. Bromley sank back into his chair, defeated. All right, what do you want? As long as it's not illegal, I'll help. This time you owe me, William said. But I need you to tell the people who've been lurking in the shadows and watching me one thing. What? Tell them this. If I don't give it to you, you can't take it. Otherwise, I'll make you bite down and lose all your teeth, and you'll have to swallow them with a smile. If you want benefits, first you need something I need, and second, be polite when you ask. I like polite people. Bromley let out a bitter laugh. So I'm just a chicken sacrificed to frighten the monkeys? Exactly, William smiled. You're a madman, William Devonhill. Bromley stared at the grin in horror. To warn some people, you're treating dozens of lives like a game. William chuckled darkly. As if you're spotless. England's a place where sheep eat each other as often as wolves do. If I'm not tough, someone will swallow me whole tomorrow. He leaned in, eyes hard. Tell me, Richard Bromley, is your heart pure? If it is, I'll do whatever you want. If it isn't, don't you dare point a finger at me. In this world, without proof. Bromley thought for a long time and then sighed. At least my heart yearns for heaven. You're staring straight into hell. He shook his head. Bromley had wanted compensation, but now he felt he couldn't wrest a penny from a man who'd lost his mind. He stood, opened the car door, and said with his back turned, There are still good people in this world, William. Spend time with simple, kind folk. Paranoia won't do you any favors. See you. William watched him go into the restaurant, rolling his eyes. Did he overdo it? Bromley looked terrified. Would England's upper crust think he was mad now? A moment later, William shrugged inwardly. A madman is better than a fat sheep. A fat sheep can be slaughtered on a whim. A madman makes people think twice. His phone buzzed. Sir, Mr. Garrick is calling, Sunday reported through William's earpiece. Patch him through. Hello, William. Garrick's voice came. Where are you? You're the host, and the host isn't even here. Rude. I'm right outside. Give me 2 minutes, William said, then hung up. He stepped into the restaurant, led by a waiter to a small private dining area in the back. He told Catherine and the others to wait, then told the waiter, I'd like to reserve this room if possible. Of course, Mr. Devonhill. The waiter spoke into his radio, smiled, and then said, All set. William handed over a 50-pound note and turned to Catherine, pulling her into an embrace. Sorry I'm late. It's fine. We just got here. Is everything handled? She asked quietly. Don't worry. The only problem is Bromley might have guessed something. Is that why you brought him tonight? Yes, he's your subordinate. Some things are more convincing coming from you than from me. But my people are squeaky clean. Bromley won't find anything concrete. Then we're fine. When William and Catherine finished talking, Garrick and Bromley joined them. They ordered food and talked well into the evening. At 9, after seeing Catherine off, Garrick hooked an arm through William's and said, Want to go to my place for a drink? It's late. Come to mine instead. Don't disturb your family. If we drink too much, we can take a room, William replied. Fine. Bromley, you're with us. Bromley, who'd already struck an agreement with Catherine, pretended otherwise. Catherine would authorize rewards equivalent to the compensation paid to the injured or killed SWAT officers. With the anti-terrorism department's compensation, that would double the total. So Bromley forced a regretful shake of his head. Sorry. With so many team members hurt, I need to visit the seriously injured at the hospital. Next time. Garrick climbed into William's car instead of driving himself. Once inside, he asked, What did you do to Bromley? He kept avoiding my eyes. What could I do? I took care of Silva, but our commander might think I'm mad. He was spooked by the way my people handled Silva. Spooked? He deals with terrorists all the time. Scared by you? What did you do? Sunday. I'm here, sir. I'm driving. Show Garrick the sniper footage and explain. Sunday complied. After watching the video and hearing the explanation, Garrick's expression shifted from incredulity to delight. How much to sell me 10 sets of this gear, he asked. Not happening, William snapped. I wouldn't sell you a single component. Who do you think I am? Only an idiot sells equipment that threatens himself. Garrick tried a price. $5 million a set? William laughed. 5 million? Don't be ridiculous. Once that kit leaks, and it will, the Secret Service will be crawling with it. A few Barretts and some specialty rounds aimed at me, and an armored car won't save me. Garrick started to argue, but William cut him off. First thing you need to do is clear out the moles in the Secret Service. Have you ever heard of Spectre? Of course. We've been fighting them for decades, Garrick said slowly. You mean the service is infiltrated by Spectre? Not just the service. The government has people being coerced too. Your priority is cleaning house, mate. You're going to be very busy. Chapter 193. After a long silence, Garrus said, How do I put this? If I become head of the Secret Service, I'll just be jumping from one fire to another. William could hear the discouragement in him. He had hoped Garrus would use the position to flush out Spectre's moles, drawing the organization's attention to the service so they wouldn't have the freedom to hunt him anymore. Le Chiffre at Casino Royale and Silva now, both connected to William, made that strategic shift urgent. If Spectre didn't have a target, once they recovered, William would be in trouble. Let a friend take the hit, not me, William said with a touch of humor. Where in England isn't a fire pit right now? At least in the Secret Service you'd be the boss. You only answer to Catherine and the top brass. You wouldn't have to deal with those dragging aristocrats. And I'll help you, secretly. Help me? Ha! What do you want from me this time? Garrus scoffed. Thinking of the dossier William kept locked away, his jaw tightened. I don't know what your grandfather Henry taught you, but you always put your interests first. Why can't you be like the old Devonshire ancestors and dedicate yourself to the country? The Aston Martin DB7 wavered on the road. William steadied the wheel and replied flatly, Selfless dedication? You're trying to make me laugh. Are there still people in this damned country who are truly selfless? Yes, the Devonshires served the country. What came of it? All 4 of my great-grandfather's brothers died in battle. My grandfather Henry had to sell the family property to keep the title. He paid for his own medical care after being injured on duty, and he didn't even get a pension when he died. My grandmother was so heartbroken she fell ill. When her savings ran out, nobody visited. If Henry hadn't planned ahead, it's questionable whether my mother and I would even be alive. So don't talk to me about dedication. This country is just where I happen to be born. If I'm not happy, I'll take my mother and emigrate. With money, there are plenty of places that will take us. Alas, Garrus said after a long pause, I'm sorry. You've ruined my mood for drinking. I'll go home and sleep. They drove the rest of the way in silence. As Garrus stepped out, he said quietly, You can't disappear, William. Think about your name and what you've done. The stain on you isn't something you can just wash off. Early the next morning, the butler of the Four Seasons presidential suite knocked and came in with the papers. Sir, these are today's newspapers. As you requested, we selected all the articles related to De Beers. William took them. Thank you. Shall I send breakfast now, or wait a bit? The butler asked. It was 8:10 a.m. Now, William said. A few minutes later, he sat in the dining room, eating and reading. The headlines were dominated by the assassination of the head of the Secret Service's wife. There was little on De Beers and the Seville blood diamond, exactly as William wanted. Shorting the company required counterparties and play in the market. The negative coverage of De Beers from yesterday hadn't had time to settle before the assassination story eclipsed it, so market panic over De Beers would be muted. Based on a decade of price behavior, William expected investors would buy the dip in the days after the stock fell, anticipating a rebound. After breakfast, he turned on the TV. Outside De Beers' headquarters, a crowd held banners and protested the blood diamond trade. That was the first wave. The second would be a secretly filmed video of the De Beers CEO trading the super pink diamond with Archer. The third, most damning wave would reveal the whole supply chain of smuggling and sales. William intended those pieces to come out consecutively in 3 days. Even if it meant making slightly less profit, he wouldn't give De Beers time to clean up the evidence. With the London matter now set, William's short position was too large for him to manage from Switzerland. He could have Brian Mills keep an eye on things. Brian had managerial rights, but not fund transfer authority. The money itself sat with the Swiss National Bank. William had the final say on when to buy and sell. It would take several more days for all the Mark armor parts to be returned to the castle. With nothing urgent to do there, William decided to fly to Boston to meet the Robert McCall Winston had mentioned. He needed to see the man in person to judge whether he would make a suitable personal bodyguard for his mother. He called the butler and booked a private jet. 10 minutes later, the butler returned. "Mr. Devonshire, the plane is booked and ready to go." "Thank you." William stood. "Please pick up some modest but appropriate gifts for Chinese hosts, nothing too expensive, and put them in my trunk." "Understood, sir?" Half an hour later, William drove his Aston Martin toward Chinatown. Following the navigation, he found Guan's Cantonese cuisine and pulled up in front. It wasn't mealtime yet. A middle-aged woman was cleaning inside. She glanced up, but kept working. "Sorry, sir, we're not open. If you want to order, you'll have to come back in 2 hours." William placed the gifts on a table. "I'm not here to eat. Is there someone named Guan Yuming here?" The woman finally looked closely, then called toward the kitchen. "Boss, someone's asking for you." William looked around the small, simply furnished restaurant. He had only been there a few times years ago. A voice came from behind. "Who's looking for me?" He turned and smiled. "Mr. Guan, we meet again." Guan Yuming looked surprised. "William, what brings you here?" "Nothing serious, just business. I won't beat around the bush. I've come to ask if you'll be my mother's driver and bodyguard." William lifted the gifts. "Won't you sit? I brought a few things." Guan took the gifts, visibly touched. "Come upstairs, I'll make tea. Lunch is on me. Let you try my cooking." Upstairs, Guan brewed a cup of tea and set it before William. "You're asking me to be a bodyguard? William, have you lost your mind? I'm over 40. I retired 10 years ago. I'm a cook now. What skills do I have left for that?" "I'll pay 600,000 a year," William said. "You'd only need to escort her when she's out of the castle. Inside, you can be a cook. Most of the time, you'll be left alone." £600,000? Guan's eyes widened. "My savings after all these years aren't even 20,000. My heart's racing." He shook his head. "No, William. I don't want to come out of retirement. I just want to watch my daughter grow up, see her get married, have children. Fighting and killing aren't for me anymore." William didn't press. He switched tack. "Think about it. If you agree, I can help your daughter get into Oxford." "That would be amazing." Guan grabbed William's hand. "I was worrying where she'd go. Oxford. Oh, William, that would change everything." He hesitated. "And the driving, the job. I'll see to the driver part." William sighed inwardly. He hadn't expected to trade a bodyguard post for an Oxford offer, but his mother had recently donated generously to Oxford's Faculty of Arts. Getting someone in wouldn't be impossible. Whether the student would graduate depended on them. Reluctantly, and with Guan's repeated entreaties, William agreed. Guan couldn't imagine being anything but thankful. He'd risk leaving retirement for his daughter's future. William smiled stiffly, hiding the fact that he'd been forced into a favor he hadn't planned to give. Chapter 194. At noon, I had a Cantonese meal at the restaurant. Guan Yuming cooked it himself, and it was quite good. After lunch, William didn't linger. Before getting into the car, he turned to Guan Yuming and his daughter and said politely, "Mr. Guan, I still think you should give my suggestion serious thought. You could open a branch in Oxford. It would do very well." "Thank you. We'll talk about it later," Guan Yuming replied, shaking his head. "I've run this place for over a decade. I'm attached to it. I can't just leave." William accepted that and said no more. He said his goodbyes and drove to the airport. After leaving Guan Yuming's house, William called his crew and headed straight to the airport. He parked and entered the VIP lounge. The captain, his sleeve cuffs bearing 4 stripes, and the co-pilot, with 3 stripes, came up to him briskly. "Hello, Mr. Devlin. I'm Keen, the captain for this flight. This is First Officer Johnson. It's an honor to serve you." "Hello," William smiled and shook their hands. "I'm William Devlin." Keen led him toward the VIP boarding gate. "This way." "Mr. Devlin," he said, "the cabin crew is preparing your preferred menu in coordination with the Four Seasons. Of course, you can also order anything else you like. We'll accommodate. William appreciated the courtesy, but found Keen's eagerness a little over the top compared to other private flights he'd taken. Still, when he stepped out onto the tarmac and saw the aircraft, everything clicked. "Is this Bombardier's new Global Express?" he asked. Keen brightened at the recognition. "Yes, Mr. Devlin. This BL 901 Global Express is on a promotional tour in England. When they learned you needed a private jet, Bombardier offered you a trial flight free of charge. You understand their motives, no doubt." William smiled. Of course he did. The offer was a sales pitch. The cost of a charter was nothing to him, but the attention of a top private jet manufacturer was gratifying. "Please thank Bombardier for me. Since it's the latest model, let's test it. Our destination is Boston." During the flight, William requested a tour once they reached cruising altitude. He came away a little disappointed. The cabin was businesslike, seats and sofas, efficient but not luxurious. The interior felt best suited for 7 or 8 passengers if comfort were the priority. Still, it would do. Gulfstream was in the middle of reorganization. Future models hadn't yet taken shape. Bombardier's larger rivals were still distant. The Global Express advertised range, enough for transatlantic trips, made it attractive. William told the flight attendant to have Bombardier send representatives to meet him in Boston, then stretched out on a sofa and slept. 7 hours later, at about 3 in the afternoon Boston time, he stepped off the plane to find 5 or 6 men in suits waiting on the tarmac. A bald, middle-aged man leading the group hurried forward, extending his hand. "Hello, Mr. Devlin. I'm Steve, Bombardier's sales president. It's an honor to meet you." "Hello, Steve. Let's go to the hotel and talk," William said as they shook hands. They were driven to the Four Seasons in the hotel's Rolls-Royce. In the presidential suite, a hotel butler presented a bottle of Macallan 1956 with a slight bow. "We regret that, after receiving notice from the London Four Seasons this morning, we searched local distributors and couldn't find a whiskey superior to this," he said. "A 1956 will do," William replied. "I have guests. Open it." The butler poured small glasses of the rare whiskey for William, Steve, and 2 Bombardier designers. To William, it was a trifling bottle. To the others, it was a luxury they rarely encountered. Conversation turned to design as the 4 of them sipped, and over 2 hours, the designers sketched a preliminary draft incorporating many of William's ideas. William approved the concept. "Proceed with this design concept," he said. "Once you have the full draft and I've reviewed and approved it, you may begin construction." The designers were thrilled. Some of William's ideas were years ahead of their time and likely to attract younger buyers who liked novelty. After the design discussion, William brought up wood. "By the way, Steve," he asked, "can you definitely source enough Hainan Huanghuali old wood with a central grain and that purple oil pear texture I prefer?" Steve took a measured sip of whiskey and laughed softly. "Don't worry, Mr. Devlin. Our company has contacts who hold such stock. I can guarantee the wood in the aircraft's bedroom will be that old Hainan Huanghuali with a central grain and purple oil pear texture. The dining tables and living room accents will use top-grade Hainan Huanghuali in other tones. The exact color will depend on what's available in the Heavenly Dynasty market. Top-grade wood comes down to opportunity, information, and money. Unless a species is extinct, if you're willing to invest time and money, it can be found. Private jet companies like ours have the funds, connections, and patience." "Excellent." William was pleased. "I want enough wood for 2 aircraft. Consider that I will replace this plane in the future. I don't want to be in a position where I want a new Bombardier and you can't provide the wood I like. If you can get it, money isn't the issue." Steve nearly choked on his whiskey with excitement. The first plane hadn't even been ordered yet, and William was already planning the next, every salesman's dream client. "Understood, Mr. Devlin. We'll acquire an extra set. Tell us whether you want us to store it or you'll keep it." "I'll keep it," William said, rolling his eyes. "Who'd leave Huanghuali wood with a third party? I'll replace the plane when your next model satisfies me. Anything else?" "No, nothing else." Steve knew better than to argue when money wasn't a concern. For him, William was a godsend. "One last thing. When can you deliver the plane?" "Normally it would take about a year. Steve said, but we have an aircraft that's 60% complete. If you don't mind, we could finish that one and have it ready before the end of the year. William shook his head immediately. No, I want a new one. Steve tried to soften the blow. The current airframe has only the fuselage finished. The interior hasn't been started. It would essentially be brand new. If you accept it, we can give you a 10% discount. No, new. I don't want to say it a third time. William fixed Steve with a look. Steve surrendered with a laugh and a bow. Very well, Mr. Devlin. I apologize. I'll have our private lawyer contact you about the contract. William stood, shook hands with Steve and the designers, and said his goodbyes. After they left, he rubbed his stomach and told the hotel butler, "Prepare dinner for me, just the 5 most famous dishes from Boston." "Certainly, sir. I'll prepare them right away. One last question. Can you eat spicy food?" the butler asked softly as he stood at William's side. Chapter 195. William hummed in acknowledgement. "Prepare a car for me. I'll need it tonight." "Certainly, sir," the butler replied. After an hour-long dinner, at 8 o'clock, William changed into something casual, jeans, a hoodie, and a baseball cap. Before leaving, he made a quick call. After 10 seconds, he told the person on the other end where he was headed, hung up, and stepped out in a good mood. Downstairs, a burgundy Rolls-Royce convertible waited at the curb. He took the keys from the butler, put on sunglasses, revved the engine a couple of times, lowered the top, and sped off. Following Sunday's directions, he drove into a rundown neighborhood in South Boston and parked across the street from an unremarkable little diner. He closed the roof, cut the engine, kept his cap low, and went in. He ordered a coffee and sat by the window near the entrance. According to Sunday's surveillance, the man they wanted, Robert McCall, came to this diner most nights, ordered a cup of tea, and sat reading for hours. After sitting for more than half an hour, a fashionably dressed young woman walked in around 9. William glanced at her over his coffee. She was short and a little broad. Seeing that, he lost interest in her and turned his attention back to the room. "Good evening, Alina. What can I get you?" Jacob, the owner, greeted the girl at the counter with a smile. "Good evening, Jacob. A Boston cream pie with extra cream and a coffee, please. Thanks. Coming right up." A few minutes later, the bell over the door chimed. "Sir, the target has entered," Sunday reported in William's ear. William looked up and saw him, a neat, composed black man in a dark gray jacket, a blue plaid shirt, black trousers, his head and beard carefully groomed, and a hardcover book in his hand. McCall scanned the diner cautiously. When his eyes landed past William, he paused, then looked again and tightened visibly. Something in him told McCall that William was dangerous. He moved to a table parallel to William's, pulled out a chair, and sat down without expression. Once seated, he straightened his book, took a folded handkerchief from his shirt pocket, and prepared his tea, keeping an eye on William the whole time. To avoid any misunderstanding, William looked up and smiled. When McCall saw his face clearly, he relaxed, gave a gentle smile, and a slight nod in return. William recognized him, an instantly familiar face, a star from his previous life, though he couldn't summon the name. Whoever felt familiar at a glance like that had to have been famous. Jacob poured hot water over the tea McCall had wrapped in the handkerchief and set it on the table. "By the way, Jacob," the owner said, nodding toward the Rolls parked outside, "whose new Rolls is that? It's late. Aren't you worried someone will strip it for parts?" Jacob just smiled, pointed toward William with his chin, and kept pouring. McCall smiled politely, then took a sip of his tea. He watched William for a few moments, recalling the media reports describing the young man's wealth. He chuckled to himself. A luxury car that cost more than $200,000 probably meant as little to William as an old pickup to anyone else. He decided to ignore him. He hadn't realized William was there specifically for him. He opened his book, but the girl at the counter, Alina, had turned around and was looking at him. "What's that book about?" she asked. McCall looked up and returned the smile. "It's about an old man who goes out fishing in a small boat." "You've been reading that same book for days. Has the old man caught anything yet?" "The fish has just taken the bait," McCall said. "It may take a few more days to reel it in." Alina laughed. "You read so slowly." "It's a big fish. We don't know yet if I can pull it in." She rolled her eyes, bit into her cream pie, and teased. What's so interesting about a book like that? Old Man Fishing. Sounds tragic. Definitely not for me. McCall understood that young people nowadays lacked patience for those kinds of stories. He glanced at Alina, who was eating with obvious pleasure, and reminded her, "Aren't you trying to quit sweets?" "I am," she said, but then cut a big piece of pie and popped it into her mouth. "This is how I quit," she said around a mouthful. "I'll stop when I get tired of them." "But aren't you trying to be a singer? Too many sweets aren't good for your voice." Alina hesitated, then set down her fork, fished some change from her bag, left it on the counter, and waved at Jacob. "Bye-bye, Jacob." "Bye, Alina," Jacob replied. At the door, she turned to McCall and called over her shoulder, "When you finish that fishing story, tell me how it ends, okay?" "No problem," McCall replied with a smile. "Bye." Watching Alina climb into a waiting taxi, William internally snorted. Her face had kept its looks, but her figure hadn't. Short, broad-shouldered, and plump, fat ruined everything, he thought. Having seen McCall up close, William formed a clearer picture of the man, a black man overflowing with a sense of justice, always ready to meddle in other people's affairs. The idea that someone like that could be his mother's bodyguard left him sour. McCall was exceptionally skilled, and his attacks were lethal, but beneath that razor edge there was a Robin Hood streak, an interfering do-gooder. Such a man would be terrible as a bodyguard. William fumed at Winston for recommending someone so unreliable. Still, if McCall's sense of justice could be channeled, he would be perfectly suited to a very different job, one that required cold efficiency. McCall also had a rare talent. He could mentally simulate the sequence and timing of an action before he executed it. That allowed him to move with total calm, each step measured and sure, able to take a life with what looked like a casual flick of the hand. William sipped his coffee and thought through fragments of memory and scenes from his old life. Suddenly, an image popped into his head. A frozen warehouse, packed floor to ceiling with stacks of cash, an entire building full of money. The thought set his pulse racing. A warehouse stacked with bundles of cash the size of large suitcases. How much money could that be? It was unlikely all of it was in $100 bills. Criminal gangs in the U.S. usually avoid $100 because they stand out. They prefer $10 and 20s. Still, even if only a portion were $100s and $50 and the rest 20s and $10, it would be an enormous haul. Conservatively, William figured it would be several $100 million, maybe even in the billions. He dismissed the idea of anything smaller than $10 bills. When money moves up the chain, it needs to be as discreet and secure as possible. The thought of hundreds of millions, perhaps 7, 8, even 10 billion, lifted his spirits. He glanced at the big black man across from him, who was quietly absorbed in a book, and a plan formed. McCall would make the perfect scapegoat. Let the public focus on the heroic Black Robin Hood causing a ruckus in front. William would reap the benefits from behind. Initially, he'd intended to recall the Suicide Squad and go all out, but now he calmed himself and decided to play it patient. He got up, asked the shop owner for a few magazines, and settled in to wait. If a fortune truly sat in that warehouse, he had no reason to rush, and moving now might make the already wary McCall suspicious. After a while, he decided to offer McCall the position of head of the Castletown police station, on the pretext of protecting the Devonshire family's wealth and his mother. Someone like McCall, experienced, meddlesome, and eager to involve himself, would make an ideal sheriff. He could be useful when the situation demanded a hand that did more than write reports. More than an hour had slipped by without him realizing it. It was past 11 when William looked up at the dark, quiet street outside the restaurant. Seconds later, 5 or 6 furtive figures appeared across the road and drifted toward the Rolls-Royce convertible parked nearby. McCall noticed them too. He looked up at William and then at the 2 luxury convertibles not far from the restaurant. "This is a classic American thing," William said with a chuckle. "Park an expensive car in a bad neighborhood and the tires will be gone by morning." He took out his phone and dialed a number. The call connected quickly. "Take care of them." "Understood," came the reply. William put the phone away and returned to his reading. Sometimes money isn't enough to win loyalty. Force, or the demonstration of it, matters. A subordinate needs to know whether his boss is truly powerful or just a paper tiger. He let his eyes stray to the street again. From the shadows, a man of over 1.85 meters in a black suit, black tie, and stark white shirt stepped into the pool of dim streetlight and started toward the 6 small-time thieves. Without looking up from his magazine, William said to McCall, "If you were in his shoes, how many seconds would you need to deal with those 6 punks?" "Seconds?" McCall echoed, watching the man in the suit. William tapped his watch, then pointed to McCall's left wrist. "Want to make a bet?" McCall turned to William, in his usual blunt way, asked, "What's the stake?" William smiled, amused by the straightforwardness. "If you win, I won't bother you today. If you lose, you'll work for me." The offer froze McCall for a heartbeat, but his expression hardened as he studied the man approaching the thieves. He had a habit of timing himself before action. Few people knew that, and William could see the change in his face, from easygoing to focused. McCall answered, 6 seconds. He pressed a button on his electronic watch and said, "Start." No sooner had he spoken than 2 soft whoosh sounds split the night. 2 lookouts across the street crumpled as shots hit them in the head. The man in the black suit had moved to within 5 or 6 meters of the thieves, and without hesitation, drawn a silenced pistol from under his arm and fired twice. The remaining 4 were stunned into panic. 2 of them went for their own guns, but the man in black fired twice more, and they dropped. A blonde kid tried to plead, "Don't kill," but the sentence died as a bullet ended him. The last thief, bent over a wheel, bolted for the corner. Not 5 steps out, he was struck in the back and collapsed, motionless. Everything happened with a terrible, efficient calm. The man, John Wick, checked the surroundings, noted the positions of security cameras on his way in, then dragged the bodies into a darker alley, 1 in each hand. He made a call from his phone and melted back into the shadows to wait. From the restaurant, McCall grinned and said to William, "Looks like I won." William pouted, but inwardly scowled at John Wick. In 2 months, the man had grown colder and quicker, decisive to the point of ruthlessness. He'd never left anyone alive like this before. William didn't know what the man had seen or done in recent weeks, but whatever it was had hardened him. He seemed both impatient and intent on proving something. More than 10 minutes later, a Ford Transit van, its sides plastered with an ad, "Professional Cockroach and Rat Extermination," pulled up and eased to a stop behind the Rolls-Royce. 3 burly men with hard faces and a middle-aged man with a pockmarked face and a bowler hat climbed out. John Wick stepped from the shadows and nodded at the middle-aged man. "Good evening, Charlie," he said. Charlie narrowed his eyes, studied Wick for a moment, then smiled. He removed his bowler hat, placed it against his chest, and gave a small bow. "Good evening, John. I didn't expect to find you in Boston. There are 6 bodies that need to be cleaned up inside." "Understood." Charlie nodded to the 3 burly men behind him. They each carried buckets, mops, sprayers, drums of chemicals, big rolls of cling film, and body bags. The men went into the alley and in 5 minutes flat, processed the bodies, loaded them into a Ford van, and bagged up the theft tools, spent casings, and pistols. They poured chemicals into the sprayer and blasted at the bloodstains, then rinsed the pavement with water. While they were at it, they wiped down the Rolls-Royce inside and out, checking every surface until it gleamed. When they finished, Charlie inclined his head toward John Wick and accepted 6 Continental Hotel gold coins John handed him. "I hope to see you again next time, John. Goodbye, Charlie." John Wick took a few steps back and melted into the shadows. He didn't relish dealing with Charlie. If he could help it, he'd never see him again. Charlie smiled without taking offense. He waved his men to the car, dusted off a hat that had no dust on it, and strolled toward the restaurant as if nothing had happened. The bell over the door chimed. He paused to give William a slight bow, then walked to the bar and lowered his voice to speak with the owner, Jacob. Jacob listened, nodding frantically. "Okay, sir. Please rest assured. I really didn't see anything just now. I was facing away from the street, prepping food for tomorrow. The restaurant's camera broke 2 days ago. If you've got a minute, could you take a look? If not, I'll have to buy a new DVR." Charlie gave a knowing half smile. I'll take a look for you. I happen to know a thing or two about that." "Thank you, sir. The DVR's in the storage room." Jacob pointed. A few minutes later, Charlie emerged from the storage room, looking mildly surprised. He shrugged at Jacob. Sorry, the recorder is definitely fried. My skills are limited, can't fix it. You should call a pro tomorrow. Excuse me, Mr. Jacob. Before he left, Charlie set a long business card and a continental gold coin on the counter. If you need anything in future, call me. Goodbye. Goodbye, sir. Jacob watched him go with a mix of awe and terror. McCall, sitting with a copy of The Old Man and the Sea, had been watching too. He'd run into plenty of cleaners in his career, guys who took their pay, did the job, and kept their heads down. He'd never seen a cleaner treat someone with such deference, or rather, such fear. It looked as if a single misstep would earn them a death sentence. McCall closed his book, stood, and after a moment's thought, greeted Jacob. But Jacob was already staring at the business card and coin in his hand like they were relics. He slid them into a hidden drawer in the counter, hands shaking. This place held more surprises than McCall had expected. Jacob had always seemed like a straightforward middle-aged chef. McCall certainly hadn't imagined the man had ties to this kind of world. Jacob forced a shaky smile. Good night, McCall. Good night, Jacob, McCall replied and left. Only after the door closed did Jacob raise his head and look at William with eyes full of reverence and dread. Charlie was someone he absolutely couldn't afford to offend. William, someone who could make a guy like Charlie afraid, was on another level entirely. Not to mention John Wick, who'd been in the alley across the street, and for whom killing was, Jacob thought in morbid awe, as casual as slicing meat. William didn't bother with Jacob's panic. He had ordered Sunday to hack into the restaurant's system earlier, hence the recorder's failure and Charlie's bafflement. He reached into his pocket, produced a continental gold coin from his private stash, and tossed it to Jacob. The chef stammered a terrified, "Goodbye, sir," as William walked out. William climbed into his convertible, fired it up, folded the top down, and waved toward the alley. John Wick stepped out of the shadows and moved to within 2 meters of the car. "Mr. Devonshire, in trouble? Being hunted?" William asked. John didn't waste time. "Yes, sir. For the past half-month, I've been hit with several assassination attempts." "Do you know who's behind them or why?" William asked. John shook his head. "Not yet. But they aren't sloppy thugs. They move like special forces, SEALs, Rangers. Their assault tactics are professional. If the first attempt had involved more than 2 men, or if I hadn't used the hotel as cover, I might not have survived the later ones." SEALs. William's eyes narrowed. Anyone capable of directing special ops soldiers wasn't to be taken lightly. "Have you taken any contracts recently?" "No, Mr. Devonshire. Since the job I did for you 2 months ago, I haven't taken any work. I've been mostly traveling, vacationing." William gave him a skeptical look. "Vacation? You take a vacation? You didn't happen to spend that vacation with some big shot's wife, did you?" William prodded, half teasing, half serious. "No." John was quick to deny it. Then, uncharacteristically shy, he added, "I have Ava. I wouldn't." "Ava?" William cut in. John pulled his phone out and flipped to a video, handing it across. A woman's laughter filled the small carriage. "What are you looking at, John?" she taunted into the camera. "You," John answered softly. William watched the clip long enough to understand the problem. He didn't wait for the rest. "You're bold," he said, "daring to get involved with an arms dealer's wife, one who fronts for military figures and possibly traffics weapons to your boss, Benjamin Arthur." John's face went hard. He swallowed then with a sudden, desperate steadiness, said, "I beg you, help me. I'll put my life on the line." He bent his right knee and lowered his body as if to perform a knight's kneel, a gesture of complete submission. Halfway down, he steadied himself and looked up at William, suddenly unsure. For all John knew, to gain something from William, he might have to give everything, his loyalty, his obedience, perhaps even his life. He paused there, suspended between humiliation and hope, waiting for William's reaction. Chapter 198. God damn it. If you kneel, I'm driving off right now. If the man William called Fatty had actually dropped to his knees, William knew he wouldn't sleep that night. He'd be haunted by Neo fans, Wick fans, and Fatty's supporters alike, cursed in his dreams until no rebirth could save him. He didn't take long to weigh the options: lose a steady light weapons supplier and his web of connections, or recruit a super assassin. An assassin who only killed people couldn't compare to Yuri and his network. Still, John Wick was, in the end, his subordinate. A boss couldn't just sit back and not make a single call. Pray to God that Yuri Orlov values money more than pride, William muttered under his breath, glaring at John. Otherwise, I can't help you. John Wick's anxious eyes begged for some action. William tapped his left ear. An invisible earpiece sat there. Sunday's voice came through the line. Sir, find out if Yuri Orlov and his wife are divorced. 1 moment, sir. 30 seconds later, Sunday replied, Sir, I found multiple newspaper reports. Mr. Orlov is divorced. Local New York media suspect he hid assets. Mrs. Orlov received little in the settlement and took on the mortgage installments for their Fifth Avenue home. In short, she's insolvent. Their child is in Mr. Orlov's custody. William went quiet. Yuri could be ruthless, especially as an arms dealer, and especially toward a woman he hadn't loved. Letting her walk away with nothing, rather than burdening her with debt, was entirely in character. Still, Eva's fate was pitiful, and that opened a door William thought he could push through. Call Yuri Orlov. Beep, beep, beep. When the call connected, Yuri's booming laugh filled the line. He wasn't offended by a major client calling late. Good evening, Mr. Devonshire. How can I help you? You too, Yuri. I'm calling about the helicopter charter in Malaysia. How will you take payment? Cash or wire? William shot John a look. If John hadn't taunted Yuri, William might have been less polite. Cash would be best. Overseas transfers are safer, but a pain to get back into the States. Fine. I'll arrange cash, like in Africa. Thank you, Mr. Devonshire. There was a pause. Yuri's tone changed after a few seconds, lower now. If there's anything you need, tell me. If it's within the light weapons scope, I can handle it. William hesitated. This was a blow to a man's dignity, and he didn't relish delivering it. Mr. Orlov? Yuri prompted after 10 seconds. After thinking a moment, William exhaled. Look, Yuri, I'm sorry to bother you this way. Someone wants to settle with you. They're willing to compensate you if you'll stop hunting John Wick. Silence stretched long enough that William assumed refusal. Then Yuri spoke in a small, measured voice. I didn't expect you to have links to the Continental, Mr. Devonshire. That's surprising. You know his identity? Of course. Anyone who survives 3 assassination attempts by a mercenary team made up entirely of retired SEALs and Rangers is not ordinary. I investigated. New York is my base. Finding someone active there isn't difficult. Then let me ask, are you willing to settle? As a man, I can understand why you're doing what you are. But as a friend, I have to tell you, John never met your ex-wife during your marriage. Your divorce wasn't his fault. No one has the moral right to hunt him endlessly. After 3 attempts, he asked me, an acquaintance, to come between you and him. He's willing to compensate you and has shown a lot of respect in coming forward. After a long pause, Yuri asked, Before I answer, how did the other side know it was me who made the move? William wasn't about to tell him it was because John had cuckolded him. He'd seen enough of Eva to know the truth. He smiled into the phone instead. Yuri, you're the best at arms dealing, but you're amateurish outside your industry. Hiring SEAL background mercenaries as assassins was your mistake. SEALs may fight well, but their tradecraft as assassins is sloppy. A professional can tell where those guys came from, trace their origins, and it's easy to find who ordered the hit. New York isn't just your turf. The Continental's connections are equal to yours. Since the other side has shown so much respect, if you strike again, it'll be deadly. You call yourself the Lord of War, but the Continental has its own kings of assassination. Don't make more enemies over a woman. Yuri sighed. I suppose I'm not made for other industries, Mr. Devonshire. Since you're intervening, I can give up pursuing John Wick, but I have a condition. He must do a favor for me 3 times when I need him. Fine, William cut in smoothly. If you're willing to settle, let's not put the fate of the Continental's top people in your hands. I think $5 million will patch your pride. Will that work for you? Yuri laughed, bitter and short. What choice do I have? Against John Wick, I might still press with money and status, but against you and the Continental, I'm nothing. Those behind me won't break with the Continental for my sake. I'll be honest, my divorce wasn't because of a third party. I chose poorly, a Madonna-like woman who wasn't right for me. And because of your warning, I prepared so she got nothing from me. I don't care how she lives now. What I can't forgive is this. She showed our son a video of her traveling with John Wick. What was she trying to do? She plays saint in front of me, but acts like a fangirl with a pretty boy. Knowing John Wick is an assassin, she still openly consorted with him. Why didn't she call the police? Did she think I'm so ugly, or that I failed to satisfy her? So tell John Wick this from me, Mr. Devonshire. I curse them both. One will live forever in chaos and blood, always repenting. The other, when she finds true love, will meet God early. There was a hard exhale through the phone, then a sharp click as Yuri ended the call. Chapter 199. The call ended with Yuri smashing his phone. William sat in the car for a long time, stunned into silence. Yuri really was ruthless, and his curses had a way of landing exactly where he intended. Thinking about Ava and John Wick, William resolved it was better not to provoke Yuri Orlov. The man seemed almost blessed by a devil. He glanced at John Wick, who looked anything but himself. The man had truly fallen hard. Not long after getting married, he'd gone from a pretty boy to a bloated, broken man. His wife and dog were dead, and he'd almost been beaten into a vegetable by the son of a polar bear gang leader. The problem is solved, but you owe me $10 million, William said. You'll pay me back with missions. Your life belongs to me now. No problem, right? John Wick nodded quickly. He knew the value of both money and life too well. I heard you have polar bear connections. Do you have any scruples about taking down the polar bear gang? None at all, Mr. Devonshire. Once I accept a job, a target is just a target. Good. Keep your phone on 24/7. Wait for my call. Goodbye. William started the engine. The Rolls-Royce convertible shot away like an arrow. Back at the hotel suite, William took a shower, then instructed Sunday to try to locate the warehouse full of cash online. If he could find it, all the better. William could break in and use the teleportation gate to empty it. Simultaneously, he had Sunday secretly order a batch of banknotes labeled as props, intending to burn the prop money afterward to create a perfect cover. At 9 the next evening, William arrived at the restaurant on his Ducati R6 and took his usual seat. The owner, Jacob, immediately set down a pot of coffee and a Boston cream pie. William smiled and nodded his thanks, then sipped the coffee and opened the copy of The Old Man and the Sea he'd brought. He'd come tonight for two reasons: to confirm that events would unfold as he remembered, and to enjoy the show. During the day, Sunday had found several suspected warehouse locations using the internet and surveillance footage. The motorcycle made searching convenient, and the black helmet hid his face from cameras. While he waited, he watched a little drama play out across the room. A lonely African-American man quietly caring for a young Russian girl who had drifted into trouble. Tonight, he would also raise the subject of making McCall the sheriff of Castle Town. If McCall accepted, William wouldn't scheme against him. If he refused, then that was that. No moral burden for scheming against someone who wasn't on his side. At 9:30, McCall arrived, a book in hand. He spotted William immediately and sighed inwardly. He exchanged a few words with Jacob at the counter, then joined William at his table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Straightening, he looked William in the eye. Let's not waste time. Tell me exactly what you want. William set the book down and smiled slightly. I need an experienced gatekeeper as the first line of defense for my family. Publicly, he'll be head of the Castletown Police Department. Secretly, his job will be to protect my mother from any threats when she's at the castle and to keep Devonshire Castle undisturbed. I considered many people. Someone recommended you. If you accept, the job pays £240,000 a year, with raises based on performance. McCall's face tightened. Mr. Devonshire, do you even know how old I am? If I were you, I wouldn't hire an old man like me for a bodyguard. You'd hire younger, more professional people. He had no taste for being a rich man's watchdog. Trying not to offend William, McCall feigned modesty. The person who recommended me surely had no good reasons. I'm too old to even hold a gun properly. My eyesight's poor, and I need glasses to read. I'd love the money, but I won't let greed ruin your affairs. A bodyguard can't make mistakes, so I apologize. I can't accept. William chuckled and narrowed his eyes. Robert McCall, 48 years old, former elite Black Beret in the U.S. Secret Service. Heartbroken after your wife's accidental death. 5 years ago, you faked your death in a vehicle explosion during a mission and have been working at a hardware store in Boston since. You have a special dynamic vision. You can see things in slow motion. He tapped his own eyes. I'm pretty sure your vision isn't bad. It's better than most. He looked McCall in the eye. The older man's pupils contracted slightly, but otherwise he betrayed nothing. William continued, You're excellent in hand-to-hand combat and lethal strikes. Not long ago, you won MVP in a community baseball game. Your hands could handle a gun or a hammer. He paused and let the implication hang in the air. A few days ago, a fugitive who'd murdered several people was found in his car with his skull bashed in. That fugitive had robbed the hardware store where you work. There might be reasons we don't know about, wouldn't you say? McCall put a hand to his forehead. Who are you? How do you know these things? Have you been watching me? William shrugged. We didn't watch you personally, but once someone recommended you, you came under surveillance. Don't worry, we only know about recent events. Before you refuse outright, hear the rest of my offer. McCall sighed, resigned. Fine, I'll listen. He spread his hands helplessly. You rich people are relentless. If you're willing to pay, there's nothing you can't find out. I hope you won't bother me after this, Mr. Devonshire. I faked my death to retire. I want a quiet life. William had been prepared for resistance. He gave a small, almost rueful smile. I don't know how you've survived until now, he thought, but kept his expression neutral. All right, McCall said, shaking his head. You've spent a great deal to learn about me. The conditions you offer must be tailored to me, but it's better to refuse than be tempted. Excuse me, Mr. Devonshire. He stood and began to step away, just as Alina carried a plate of cream pie over to the table. You look well, McCall greeted her. Alina, who had never received a gift since coming to the United States, looked flustered and excited. Her voice trembled. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the coffee and the cream pie. She glanced at William, who sat behind McCall watching, then hurried. I won't disturb you two. No, come on, McCall said, moving to his usual seat and pulling out the chair. I'm done talking with my friend. Sit down. Let's chat. Alina hesitated, then accepted, still awkward. Thank you. Am I really not disturbing you? Of course not, McCall replied. He smiled at her neat table manners as she quickly tidied her phone, plate, and bag. This is a restaurant, not a classroom or an office. I'm not your teacher or your boss. You don't need to be so careful. Alina relaxed and laughed nervously. After a moment, she reached into her bag and produced a CD. Thank you for encouraging me yesterday, she said. This is a private album I recorded this afternoon at a small studio. Chapter 200. Alina set the CD gently on the table and looked up with a hopeful smile. If you don't mind, I'd like you to be my first listener. Could you tell me what you think after you hear it? Of course. It's an honor, McCall said, taking the CD. He returned her smile. Alina the singer, I'm glad you trusted me to be the first. I'll listen carefully, and congratulations for taking the first step toward your dream. With courage, anyone can get there. He extended his fist, and Alina bumped it awkwardly, but gratefully. Thank you. McCall shook his head and laughed. Then he wiggled his hand like it hurt. My, do young people have such strong grips these days? Several times Alina's phone rang, and each time she cut the call off. McCall noticed the furtive look she kept casting at the screen and, concerned, asked nothing. It's okay, she said with a small, embarrassed smile. You probably guessed my line of work. McCall nodded. He could tell, her clothes, the careful way she carried herself. He kept watching her, then offered quietly, You know, you can be yourself here. Alina gave a short, humorless laugh. You don't understand, Mr. McCall. Maybe in your world you can. In mine, my life is controlled by other people. Then change it. Try to change your own fate, McCall urged. William, sitting at another table, snorted. He'd been listening. Seeing McCall look his way with a flicker of annoyance, William covered his mouth and shrugged apologetically. Sorry for listening, but you're wasting your breath. You're telling a helpless girl to resist forces she can't handle. Not everyone can fight back like you. If you want to save her, send her away, or... He made a throat-slitting gesture behind Alina, then checked his watch. Bored. Get her out. Otherwise, you're just courting trouble. In William's view, McCall's words were naive and dangerous. The girl looked exactly like the hit girl he'd seen before. a product the polar bear gang kept for profit. Encouraging her to defy them was, to William, suicidal. He thought of the thugs he could deploy, Barney, Christmas, John Wick, and how useful they were because they didn't waste time on sentiment. He'd rather have pragmatism than a bleeding heart at his side. Still, out of something like pity or a desire to be blunt, William stood, walked over to McCall's table, and faced Alina. "The polar bear gang aren't people you'd trust," he said. "To them, everything except vodka and money is merchandise. If you don't want this life, get far away. Go somewhere they don't operate. Marry an honest man. Live anonymously. Otherwise, you'll have to claw your way up. Good luck, naive little girl." He tossed a $100 bill on the table, picked up his helmet, and left without waiting for a response. Outside, his Ducati R6 revved and then tore away like a missile. Alina stared after him, dumbfounded, then looked at the 100 on the table. Jacob, the restaurant owner, came by to clear their cups. He saw the bill, sighed, and lamented to Alina, "That was a big boy none of us can afford to offend. You should have listened to me. If you'd hooked up with him, you'd be set for life." He wiped the table with a rag, shook his head at her baffled expression, and went back to the counter. Inwardly, he regretted that his earlier attempts to hint at things to Alina had failed. "Such an ignorant, fearless girl," he muttered. "All my signs wasted." After leaving the restaurant, William followed leads with the help of Sunday and spent over an hour checking several likely warehouse locations. On his fourth stop, he found what he was looking for, a dockside cold storage complex that, on the surface, looked like beef and mutton freezers. From the alley, he parked his motorcycle and extended his mental reach to probe inside. The cold rooms were a front. Inside, armed men with Uzis and AKs moved through the stacks. In one large warehouse, a dozen armed guards watched over more than 30 women in work uniforms. Each woman had a table and 2 money-counting machines. Huge piles of cash sat at their feet. They grabbed handfuls of bills, sorted them, fed stacks into the counters. Only the $50 and $100 bundles were kept neatly on the tables. 10s and 20s were counted, bundled, and then dumped into large plastic barrels. William's probe picked up more detail. One woman stood and signaled. 2 guards took notice, dragged one of the barrels to a massive mound of small bills, and asked the man perched on that pile, "Boss, should these small bills be sent to the outpost or kept in the warehouse?" "Send them to the outpost," the boss said. "Warehouse is nearly full. Half of it is 10s and 20s. Call that slimeball Slavi and have him use his East Coast connections to circulate all these 10s and 20s. Tell him if he sends any more, I'll let him talk to Mr. Pushkin himself. And tell him to see how far those 10s and 20s go when he tries to bribe American cops with them." "Understood, boss. I'll move people to deliver it to Slavi." The boss watched the subordinate go, then said, "Give him 1 week. Next week we load this onto a ship to the Tarasov brothers in New York. If he doesn't want Viggo Tarasov on his case, he better hurry." "Heh, Slavi wouldn't dare cross Viggo and Abram Tarasov," the man replied. The name Viggo rang a bell for William. He tapped his earpiece. "Sunday, pull up Viggo Tarasov and Abram Tarasov." Within moments, Sunday sent the dossiers. When William saw Viggo's face, recognition clicked. Viggo Tarasov, the polar bear boss who appears in the John Wick story, the one whose son assaulted John Wick and set off that revenge. William smiled at the irony and dialed a familiar number. Beep, 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 the ringtone sounded 4 times before John Wick answered. "Good evening, Mr. Devonshire. How can I help you?" "Do you know Viggo and Abram Tarasov?" William asked. John paused, then said, "Yes, sir. Viggo and Abram Tarasov are polar bear bosses, well known in our circles. They're said to represent the oligarch Pushkin's interests in New York. Mr. Devonshire, are you planning trouble with them?" "No," William said, amused. "Since you know them, help me say hello. Tell them I'd like to invite the brothers to dinner. Boston Lobster in Boston." A small, private invitation, delivered in a voice that meant more than dinner.